My daily life in a TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726 Negative example. Medical Center. The combination of a king and 4 bombers, with white coats fluttering lightly, walked through corridors and made their official debut with the sound of background music. Adam led 4 interns to familiarize themselves with surgery. This step could actually be done by George, but Adam still did it himself. Since he was going to train a group of recognized famous doctors, he had to do it from beginning to end, without missing a step. And Dr. Bailey's opening to the interns was definitely the most classic, worthy of Adam's tribute. Dr. Duncan. When walking through a ward, he was stopped by a familiar bald man, Vincent. Adam stopped and looked at his fellow countrymen. The 4 interns who followed closely behind him also stopped immediately. "How is Rick?" "Thanks to you, Rick recovered quickly." Texas tough guy Vincent, with a smile on his face, glanced at the 4 followers behind Adam and exclaimed, "I knew that Dr. Duncan was the best. This is the style you should have. You are worthy of being a Texan." That's right." At the rescue site of the cruise ship accident, Christina reminded him and ran to beg Adam to rescue his friend Rick, who was trapped under the car. He was afraid that Adam was a Texan or a tough guy with a Texas soul. Vincent. Now he knows that Adam is also a Texan, and he is immediately proud of Adam as a Texan. The unpleasant and unnecessary worries at the beginning were just wiped away by him. "It's just a resident doctor with a few interns." Adam smiled and said, "Rick is a hero and deserves our best care." An unrelated passerby was able to rush into the dangerous place without hesitation when the disaster occurred, saving more than a dozen trapped people, and finally he was trapped under the car, suffering and dying several times. Even if this Rick is just an ordinary mechanic, without superpowers and big buttocks, in Adam's eyes, he is undoubtedly a hero worthy of respect. Under Adam's telephone guidance, Christina drilled a hole in Rick's skull on the spot and saved his life. The search and rescue team that Adam secretly called through Karen also arrived as soon as possible and moved the car off Rick. Christina protected Rick and got on the ambulance that Adam helped coordinate as soon as possible. They rushed to the hospital and recovered completely under the follow-up treatment of Dr. Shept. However, it still takes a lot of time to recover from the injury. Now Rick is recovering in the VIP ward specially provided by Adam. Vincent obviously came to see him. Not everyone respects heroes. Vincent looked at Adam gratefully. "Thank you for taking care of Rick in the future. I'm leaving. I guess I won't be able to come to see him before Rick is discharged from the hospital." "Don't worry." Adam nodded and smiled. "New job?" "I guess so." Vincent couldn't control the arc of his mouth. "Going to MIT to study for a master's degree, a military training program. Are you a soldier?" Adam looked at him in surprise. At this moment, the light reflected by the almost bald head flashed Adam, and Adam's memory suddenly flashed back to Vincent in military uniform. "Shit, it turned out to be you." "I used to be." Vincent smiled and said, "After I retired from the army, I went to college and became an engineer." This time, Rick's rescue incident had a great impact on me. After all, personal power is insignificant in the face of disaster. It happened that my old boss informed me that the Air Force just had such a training program. My major and military experience were in line with the training program, so I applied for this training program. Now I am going to MIT to study mechanical engineering as a graduate student. Haha, very good, very good. This is an engineer who is better than a physicist. Adam didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I never asked you before, what's your last name?" "Williams." Vincent smiled and said, "My name is Vincent Williams." "That's right." Adam finally confirmed it. At first, he thought that the bald Texas tough guy in front of him was the brother-in-law of the drug enforcement officer of Old White, but he never expected that he was the Air Force colonel in The Big Bang Theory who almost scared Rajesh to death with one sentence, and frightened Howard so much that he thought the agents were following the car to catch him, stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, ran a red light, and was stopped by the police. His legs were weak and he couldn't walk in a straight line. Colonel Williams, fate is so wonderful. Beep, beep. At this time, the pager on Adam's waist rang. Vincent, I'm sorry, a patient is coming. Adam picked up the pager and said to Vincent, I wish you a happy life at MIT in advance. Goodbye. Then he waved and ran towards the emergency room. 3 of the 4 interns behind him ran after him immediately. The fastest one was not George, but the short Neil Melendez, and the second one was George. The third one was Carter. Lexi was the slowest to react. At the door of the emergency room, the notification of the multi-vehicle rear-end collision has notified those who should be notified, and everyone has come. Remember, major accidents are always our favorite, because they are your best practice opportunities. Christina appeared excitedly with a group of followers. Then Meredith did the same. Don't learn from her. Adam said to his intern, even if she is telling the truth, we must always maintain compassion for the patients. And once her words are heard by the patients or their families, she will be beaten at the least, sued at the worst, and even shot. So don't learn from her excitement. Hey, are you serious? Christina also heard it, walked over, and said dissatisfiedly, use me as a negative example for you to teach interns? Am I wrong? Adam smiled and said, I have told you many times, you don't change, and you don't allow me to use you as a negative example. If I have any questions, you are welcome to use me as a negative example. I don't mind at all. Christina was speechless. Everyone around couldn't help but smile, but George and Lexi laughed out loud. Okay, Adam laughed at me, and even you O'Malley laughed at me. Christina's eyes slanted and her thin eyebrows raised. I think my interns will have a lot of negative examples to refer to later. The first one is never to be 007. Christina. George's smile froze. Okay, the ambulance is coming soon. Go back and take your interns and prepare to take over the patients. Adam reminded at the right time. Christina glared at George and then walked back to her team. Dr. Duncan, the last climber who was suspected to have died, has also been found. He is still alive and will be sent here soon. He is seriously injured and has a mountaineering axe stuck in his head. A nurse ran over and said, the director hopes you will take over. Okay. Adam nodded in agreement. Damn it. When Christina heard this, her eyes were full of envy and jealousy. A seriously injured climber with a mountaineering axe stuck in his head who is not dead yet. What an interesting case. Now she doesn't think the patients of the next series of car accidents are attractive. Peas. It's a holiday tonight, so I may not be able to finish the chapter in the evening, but I will try my best. Happy Lantern Festival to everyone. Chapter 727, A Slap in the Face is a medical center. At the entrance of the emergency room, who is my sister? Lexi stood beside George and looked into the doctors. Can't you tell? George said in surprise. At this time, Dr. Bailey and the new chief resident Kelly also came out wearing protective clothing. Gray, tell them to stand aside. Don't crowd here. Dr. Bailey stood there and naturally gave orders to Meredith next to him. Meredith also did it quickly. The new chief resident Kelly opened her mouth slightly, and a grudge was stuck in her throat. Not knowing what to say, Meredith Gray is now a formal resident, no longer Dr. Bailey's intern, so she is not under Dr. Bailey's jurisdiction, but under her, the chief resident. Damn it, this is the second time. Just now, when the chief of surgery came to announce the accident and asked everyone to start preparing, she was nervous for a while and asked more questions. As a new chief resident, what should she pay attention to? Then the chief of surgery asked her if the other residents were arranged. She said she called them, but no one showed up until now. Seeing the strange look from the chief of surgery, she panicked and subconsciously went to ask Dr. Bailey next to her. Then Dr. Bailey said, every time I called them, they came running. It really made her scalp numb in front of the chief of surgery. Damn it, it's happening again. But she didn't have the courage to face the light of the medical center in front of everyone. At this moment, the infinite joy of surpassing the first and second candidates and winning the position of chief resident as a dark horse disappeared. Alas, this damn ruthless, shameless and unreasonable life. Lexi finally confirmed her half-sister and stared at Meredith in a daze. Are you okay? George's male best friend Soul instantly came online. It's okay, I just don't know what to say for a while. Lexi's eyes were still fixed on her sister, and she smiled bitterly. This is the first time I've met her. What kind of person is she? Apart from vaguely learning from Adam that her sister might be an old driver, she really knew nothing. Meredith is very good. George began to talk endlessly to his new best friend Lexi, detailing the good things about his goddess Meredith. Adam stood in front with a blank expression. The short man Neil Melendez was half a step behind with the same expression. Carter glanced at the two competitors behind him with a playful smile on his face. The first ambulance roared over. Christina was the first to rush up. The driver who caused the accident died on the spot. Just declare him dead. As soon as the paramedic opened the door, he gave Christina a blow on the head. Dead? Christina complained, and reluctantly stepped forward to remove the cloth that had been covering the driver's face. Damn it. Then why did you turn on the alarm lights to make me so excited? After taking a look, she threw the cloth away and turned to the four interns who were stunned and complained, "Who of you wants to see this poor guy?" The four interns were stunned because they were both excited to encounter a dead person as soon as they came to intern, and they were also scared by their boss's indifference. Anyone who saw this scene knew that their boss was not a person who pretended to be indifferent. She was really indifferent. At this time, the other two ambulances also roared in. They were all victims of the serial car crash. A pregnant woman had her right arm cut off. There was also a bald middle-aged man with a knee injury. Meredith and his intern stepped forward to take over the pregnant woman with a broken arm. Bald Chris and his intern stepped forward to take over the bald man with a knee injury. Has everyone finished seeing the patient? Christina looked left and right, trying to grab the patient. Although the department has been determined, patients are usually managed by the resident doctors of the department. But when it comes to an emergency, who cares which department you are a resident doctor? Naturally, you will be the first to go. Those famous attending doctors all know a little bit about everything. They really can't wait for other specialists to come for consultation. In critical moments, they can really do it themselves. This is the solid foundation laid by the residents. As long as the senior doctors such as the attending doctors of the specialists and the chief resident doctors don't speak up, whoever has the ability among the residents will get the case. Christina did this. It was just basic practice. However, she was directly shouted away by Meredith and Bald Chris, who are also experienced now, so she could only return to her patient and start signing the death certificate. Time of death 8:22. Just as she raised her hand to look at the time and announced the time of death, the driver who had been declared dead suddenly took a breath and moved his body. It's not the time of death. He's not dead. He's alive again. Christina excitedly took the stethoscope and began to listen to the driver's heart. This rare case made Adam, who was waiting for the last climber, couldn't help but come over to see it. Back off. Christina listened to the driver's heart and waved to Adam. My patient died and came back to life. It's just like a magic zombie, but it's just my magic zombie. You are not allowed to interfere. After saying that, she took off the stethoscope from her ear and shouted at the four confused interns. What are you still standing there for? Help push him in. Patients are resources, and this kind of patient who has come back from the dead is an extremely rare resource. Surround him, protect him. Go, go, go. Adam shook his head and laughed. Seeing another ambulance coming, he walked away. In the serial car crash, 3 seriously injured people were reported, and now they have all arrived. This ambulance should be the last climber who was found. At the entrance of the emergency room, get out of the way, get out of the way. Meredith organized everyone and shouted for them to clear the aisle and send the pregnant woman with a broken arm to the surgery department, but was blocked by a figure. Are you Meredith Gray? Lexi saw her half-sister approaching her, and she was so excited that she stopped her directly. Yes, Meredith said anxiously, I am Lexi. Lexi gave her name. Good. Get out of the way. Meredith hadn't reacted yet. Lexi Gray, I'm your sister. Lexi finally finished her words. Meredith stood there and stared at this sister who suddenly appeared for several seconds before speaking again. Get out of the way. George, who was standing aside, finally reacted and pulled Lexi away, allowing Meredith to push the pregnant woman with a broken arm and run into the hospital. The two stood at the door of the emergency room, looking sideways at Meredith's figure running farther and farther away. George comforted her. There are patients, So she is like this. Yeah, Lexi nodded in a low mood. It was their first meeting, and under such circumstances, it was inevitable that there would be some influence. But it could not explain the admiration and enthusiasm in her eyes and the entanglement and indifference in her half-sister's eyes, even with a hint of disgust. Her sister really hated her. At this time, Adam also received the climber with a mountaineering axe stuck in his head and pushed him into the hospital. Get out of the way. 2. Without Adam saying anything, the short Neil Melendez and Carter, who were pushing the way forward on the left and right, shouted at the same time. However, unlike the seriousness of the short Melendez, Carter, who deliberately put on a stern face, could not help but gloat in his shouting. Melendez, go and call Dr. Shept to come for a consultation. Carter, go and prepare to take an X-ray of the patient. Adam instructed while examining the climber. Dr. Duncan, what about us? George stood aside and reminded. You guys, Adam said calmly without even looking up. Take Little Gray to find Meredith and sort out this relationship first. George was confused. Adam, wasn't I clear enough? Adam looked up and looked at him coldly. Yes. Dr. Duncan. George lowered his head and left with the distraught Lexi. If George had no idea before when Adam said his rules would be very strict, then now he has it. P.S. Thanks to M3 Lodik and Quetzalcoatl 13 for the rewards. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728, Heartbroken Dr. Carter, Medical Center. Dr. Shept came over in a hurry for consultation. After talking to Adam, he said, there is another patient whose back, skull and spine are completely cut off. Adam, I'll leave this operation to you. Okay. Adam nodded and said in surprise, is it true that the back, skull and spine are completely cut off from the inside? Yes. Dr. Shept smiled at Adam. This is a medical miracle. I need to ensure that this miracle continues as much as possible. If you need help, be sure to come to me. Adam couldn't help but say, I will get this operation done as soon as possible. He was very interested in this extremely rare operation. Okay. Dr. Shept smiled knowingly and turned away. Can you really survive if the back, skull and spine are completely cut off? Carter touched his neck, his eyes full of disbelief. This is almost the patient's brain and body, with only skin and muscles connecting them. 90% died on the spot, and 10% died on the way. The little Melendez spoke, his eyes full of burning. There is no precedent of a patient surviving to the hospital. This is indeed a medical miracle, so we have to hurry up. Maybe we can catch up with this operation. Adam reminded. Operating Room 3, Cleaning and Disinfection Room. Dr. Melendez, have you ever been in an operating room? Carter skillfully opened the disinfection brush bag, turned on the faucet with his knees, wet his hands, and started from the nails, scrubbing the fingers 10 times, front, side, back, and between the fingers, then scrubbing the palms 10 times, the back of the hands, forearms, front, side, back, all the way to the elbows, and then began to rinse with water. When other medical interns could not get close to the operating room, he was able to do these standard procedures for entering and leaving the operating room as smoothly as silk because he followed Adam. The reason why he asked this question was naturally Versailles, and passers-by knew it. The little Melendez was an outstanding graduate of the top medical school Johns Hopkins. The resources he had during his internship must have been far superior to those of ordinary medical students. It was certain that the other medical student had been in and out of the operating room several times during his internship. He also knew about these cleaning and disinfection procedures, but the number of times was definitely not too many, and his movements were naturally not as smooth as his. The reason why Carter asked this question was to lead the little Melendez to ask him why he was so smooth. Then he casually told the number of operations he had performed with Adam in the past 6 months, which was guaranteed to shock the other party and make him stunned and unbelievable. When Carter thought of the little man who was an outstanding graduate of a top university, his arrogant and cold face suddenly turned into the shape he imagined. He felt so happy. Carter couldn't control himself and almost laughed out loud. He almost held it back. When he turned his head and prepared to show a casual smile to his biggest competitor, he found that the little man who came in later for cleaning and disinfection had half raised his hands and walked into the operating room. "What are you doing?" Carter was stunned. "Have you cleaned and disinfected it?" The little Melendez didn't say anything, but just gave a look of "what do you think?" Then he pushed open the door between the cleaning and disinfection room and the operating room and walked into the operating room. Carter's face froze there. How great it was just now, how deflated it was now. "Okay, let's get started." Adam saw that everyone was there, glanced at the little man and Carter who stood upright waiting for orders, and assigned, Melendez, first assistant, Carter, second assistant. Carter was stunned there, looking at Adam with a look of grievance. "Don't mention it, Dr. Carter. Is there any problem?" Adam glanced at him. Violet, the most understanding nurse standing next to Adam, covered her face with a mask and looked at Carter. The eyes revealed were full of regret. "No problem." Carter suddenly shuddered, suddenly remembered George O'Malley and Lexi Gray who had just been slapped in the face and driven away, and immediately suppressed the grievance in his heart. No matter how much he despised George O'Malley, and how he gloated over Lexi Gray's behavior when she first arrived, but it is undeniable that George O'Malley is Adam's former colleague and friend, and Lexi is not only a beautiful woman, but also the sister of Adam's colleague and friend Dr. Gray. Although he has been with Adam for more than half a year, he really doesn't think that he has more face than these two in Adam's eyes. In fact, he had some fantasies that he had more face than them before. But when he saw the eyes of the most understanding little nurse, this fantasy was completely annihilated. There are only wrong names, but no wrong nicknames. If it weren't for the repeated reminders of the most understanding little nurse, he would not be able to get close to Adam at all, let alone a series of internship adventures that made others envious and jealous. The eyes of the most understanding little nurse are the biggest warning. Therefore, even if he couldn't figure it out and felt wronged, he didn't dare to say a word or look at it more. What is prestige? It is the trust and obedience of others to your rules. And only equal treatment and consistent rules can make people convinced and truly believe. Looking at the silent Carter, Adam smiled in his heart. It seems that it is not so bad to accept George. George is the fat chicken. Think about this time last year. Dr. Burke also used George as a warning to the monkeys. I have to say that the rules set by the predecessors are indeed based on practical considerations. It smells so good. Of course, there is a reason why the little man was made an assistant instead of Carter. First, Carter's drifting after becoming Dr. Carter is simply too eye-catching, which is unacceptable in the operating room where human lives are at stake. Second, the little man is obviously more solid than Carter. When Carter was still asking whether it was possible to be a magic zombie patient, the little man had already casually revealed the specific rescue data of this case. It is completely clear who to choose. But Adam will not explain. First, it is too uncool. Second, sometimes the explanation of the person involved is not as effective as that of an outsider or the other party himself. As for Carter, if he can't figure it out, Adam is not worried at all. If he really can't figure it out, then he will be the only one who will be unlucky in the end. The operation went smoothly and quickly. The little man standing in the position of the first assistant showed a solid foundation and spiritual cooperation that satisfied Adam. Adam's previous guess was correct. This little man should be the first candidate for a famous doctor among the 4 interns. Melendez, do you have any questions? Adam was doing the operation quickly. He glanced at the little man's face and saw that he was confused. He couldn't help but smile and said, "Dr. Duncan, this doesn't seem like what the 3 climbers said before, that he was swinging a mountaineering axe to hook the rock and accidentally dropped it and hit it." The little man expressed his doubts. "Do you know the story told by the 3 climbers?" Adam didn't answer it immediately, but asked with interest. "I came here early this morning and heard them talk about it when I visited the hospital." The little man's expression was indifferent. "Haha." Adam couldn't help laughing. "I think you have not only heard the story of the 3 of them, but also the conditions of other patients, right?" "Impossible." Carter, who had been keeping his head down and honestly being the second assistant with little presence, couldn't help but look up. with an incredible look on his face. "We are here for internship. Isn't it a basic requirement to understand the conditions of the patients in the hospital?" the little man said as a matter of course. The nurse who understood the little man looked back and forth between Adam and the little man, and the smile in her eyes was almost overflowing. Carter, who saw this scene, said, Chapter 729, No One Can Be Left Behind. The Astonished Little Medical Center. 3. Yes, this is the basic requirement. Adam looked at the little man with admiration. "You don't have a photographic memory, do you?" Carter looked at the little man who had a bit of Adam's style, and he was almost jealous. "No." The little man Melendez shook his head. "What kind of photographic memory is needed for this?" Carter was speechless. Photographic memory is a skill, but to do this kind of thing, it requires more attitude. Damn it. The little man Melendez's calm show is exactly what he has always wanted to imitate Dr. Duncan but couldn't get. Thinking about the counter show in the cleaning and disinfection room just now, and now the most understanding little nurse agrees that the little man has more Adam's style, Carter's heart is broken. Violent. "What's wrong?" Adam noticed that the most understanding little nurse glanced at the monitoring equipment twice, and asked casually, "Nothing." The most understanding little nurse smiled and said, "I just heard a clicking sound and thought that there was something wrong with the patient's heart. Now everything is stable, haha." Such an obvious teasing immediately filled the operating room with laughter. "Whose heart is broken and can't be heard even with such a loud noise? Just look at whose face is the most embarrassed and red." Carter is about to cry. "Obviously I was the first one. Obviously I am your best friend who understands the most." "Okay." Adam stopped smiling and said to the little man, "I didn't believe the story they told at first. The story of the 4 climbers is also very common. The 4 of them came together because they all like extreme sports. They formed a circle of best friends and often went out together to challenge the limits. This time, they climbed the cliffs together. According to the 3 of them, when they were halfway up, a storm suddenly hit. A cliff was hundreds of feet above their heads. They planned to set up a tent and wait for the storm to pass. But the last climber found, named Lonnie, panicked at this time and insisted on going down the mountain. The other 3 people naturally didn't want to. Their safety ropes and other things were tied together. When Lonnie insisted on climbing down, the other people also began to become unstable. Then the person above Lonnie waved a climbing axe and tried to use it to get stuck on the rock and stabilize his body, but accidentally dropped it and hit Lonnie on the forehead. What a surprise. What is the probability of such an accident? The higher probability is that people, under the control of the survival instinct at the critical moment of life and death, do some expected actions that violate morality and humanity. Think about Sun Wukong in Journey to the West, and then think about Huatigan, one of the 4 wonders in the South in the untold story. They are all wielding guns and sticks, so why are the styles completely different? Isn't it because Huatigan is facing a life and death choice that his morality and humanity are directly broken? This kind of crappy thing doesn't happen too often on a lonely boat drifting on the sea. There are no accidents or surprises at all. But we are doctors, not policemen. We should not be responsible for these matters. Adam looked at the little man and said, "We are only responsible for treatment. When the patient wakes up, everything will be revealed. If unfortunately, we will tell the people who should know what we have seen and discovered." At this point, he looked at the small mountaineering axe on the patient's head and smiled. "Melendez, Carter, do you have any math skills? Can you estimate how deep the mountaineering axe can penetrate into the head after it falls, and then compare it with the depth we pulled it out? If you get it right, you will get extra points." This time, not only Carter was speechless, the always arrogant and calm little Melendez also showed a stunned expression for the first time. Mathematics is the foundation of all sciences. Medicine is no exception. Medical students must learn mathematics, whether it is clinical or scientific research. Anyone with a little ambition will study medical statistics very seriously. But as a joke goes, the medical student asked the professor, "Why should we learn mathematics when we are studying medicine?" The professor said, "To save the dying and the wounded." The medical student was puzzled. "How can learning mathematics save the dying and the wounded?" The professor replied, To prevent idiots like you from graduating and becoming doctors smoothly is to save the dying and the wounded. Mathematics does have many applications in medicine, and it is not just used to screen out stupid idiots as in the joke. But most doctors only learn it roughly. Even those who are ambitious only learn it seriously, and they are not the kind who can immediately report the answer when they encounter a comprehensive application scenario of medicine, mathematics, physics and other subjects. What a pity. Adam shook his head. You don't fight for the extra points given for free, Carter. Melendez. Okay, let's start. After Adam reported a number, he reached out and grasped the handle of the mountaineering axe, and steadily pulled the axe blade of the mountaineering axe out of the patient's head. Hiss. The nurses who know the most took a breath of cold air. None of them are people who play extreme sports, so naturally they don't know what a mountaineering axe looks like. Originally thought it was just a miniature axe, but when Adam pulled out the axe blade, he realized that the front end of the mountaineering axe was particularly long. The depth of the aka inserted into the patient's head was particularly deep. Either the Earth's gravity multiplied there, adding bricks and tiles to the mystery of nature. Adam put the mountaineering axe on the instrument tray and smiled. Or some people are really willing to use force when they are between life and death. It's so abominable. This is murder, the most understanding nurse said angrily. Don't jump to conclusions first, Adam reminded. Let's see what they say later. Since they chose to play this extreme climbing together, they are all tied together. If the patient is really halfway through the climb, hanging in the middle of the cliff, and suddenly doesn't take the usual path, putting everyone in danger, then it's really hard to say who is right and who is wrong. Violent. Report the discovery and notify the police. Yes, Dr. Duncan, the most understanding nurse quickly agreed, picked up the phone in the operating room, and reported the discovery. The police who got the news will naturally talk to the three climbers. Of course, it is more likely that the police are facing three silent climbers and the attorney who rushed over and asked him to discuss everything. Those who have the money and time to play such extreme excitement cannot be from ordinary families. Adam didn't care about these messy things. All he could do was to quickly perform the operation on the patient and save him. When the patient wakes up, how to tear up the original matter with the three good friends is their own business. Adam still has to rush to the scene of the magic zombie. That's right, faced with such a rare operation, Adam has this opportunity to participate. How could he give up? When Christina saw Adam bringing the little guy and Carter in to watch, her face turned black. Chapter 730 Adam's Surgical Treatment, Medical Center. Observing the operating room. Oh, great. Christina rolled her eyes and laughed at herself. Adam, is the operation done already? The surgeon, Dr. Shept, looked at the time in surprise. Yeah. Adam walked to the second assistant's position and smiled reservedly. The short Melendez and Carter could only stand in a row with number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 under Christina, looking around. That's right, the 4 interns under Christina have no names. Christina, who is too lazy to name them, directly uses 4 numbers as code names. Adam seriously suspects that Christina is imitating Dr. House Next Door, because Dr. House Next Door also likes to give nicknames to his doctors, and from time to time he will directly use numbers to refer to them. As an authority control, Christina naturally sees the good and emulates them, concise and clear. As for whether it is suspected of insult, that's for sure. But none of the first to fourth were tough. When they met such a cold and ruthless boss, they could only remember their code names. Moreover, they encountered such a rare operation right after they came here for internship. When others were still busy doing odd jobs outside, they followed the boss into the operating room and participated in the operation. What a wonderful experience. Just based on this, they could let go of the little discomfort of the number code. Of course, it would be better if there were only 4 of them in this operating room without the little man and Carter who suddenly squeezed in, especially when they heard that they were rushing to the second one after completing a good operation. Their sense of satisfaction suddenly dropped to an extremely embarrassing situation. It was boring. Comparing people is so annoying. How is the climber's injury? Dr. Shept asked casually while performing the operation. After the mountaineering axe was pulled out, was there any laceration? No. Adam smiled and said, the wound is very neat and very deep. Sure enough, Dr. Shept looked up at Adam. Adam nodded. Those three guys really had the guts to do that, Christina said in surprise. Obviously, the story the three climbers had made up was not professional enough and had a lot of loopholes. Anyone who had heard it would have noticed the problem if they thought about it. From a medical point of view, according to the story they made up, the mountaineering axe accidentally fell and hit their companion's head, so the wound should not be deep and there should be a laceration. As long as the operation is performed, it will be clear at a glance. The three of them chatted while performing the operation. The others could only watch with bated breath. Okay, now it's the most important step. Dr. Shept took a deep breath and looked at Adam and Christina. I'm going to start the fusion. He's going to move. At this moment, Adam suddenly took action, held down the patient's body, and reminded, "There's not enough anesthesia." Anesthesiologist. Although Dr. Shept didn't see the patient move, out of trust in Adam, he immediately shouted to the anesthesiologist, "He can't move at all now." Melendez, Carter, each hold down one of his legs. Adam held the patient's body and neck, firmly fixed the patient's upper body, and ensured that the surgical area did not move at all, while shouting, "Christina, go talk to him, tell him to hold on." The little guy rushed over first and held down the patient's legs. After Carter also ran over, he gave one leg to Carter. The two held them firmly. "You can't move, do you hear me?" The patient was lying face down, and Christina reacted immediately to Adam's shout. She put her hands on both sides of the patient's shoulders, assisted Adam in fixing the patient's body, squatted down, and warned loudly to the patient's face facing the floor, "This is not a choice. If you move, everything will get worse. You can't abandon the people you love. They need you, as a husband and father, not the memories of you loving them. So you must not move." Adam clearly felt that the patient's struggle was decreasing. At this time, the anesthesiologist had quickly re-anesthetized him. Most people can't figure out whether it was the anesthesia that worked or Christina's words that made the patient restrain his instinct for love. But Adam knew, Christina's words really worked. Words such as generating electricity for love and infinite love that are full of beautiful and mysterious expectations for love are really not groundless. Seeing that the patient was re-anesthetized, Dr. Shept breathed a sigh of relief. "Thanks to you, Adam." The patient's spine and posterior cranial cavity were completely cut off. It was a medical miracle that he could survive until now. He couldn't imagine that at this critical moment, after the patient struggled, miracles could continue to happen. Miracles are miracles because they cannot be repeated. Only Adam could detect such emergencies in advance, and react immediately and solve them quickly. If Adam's surgery had not been required to be done immediately, and the surgery here could not wait, he would definitely wait for Adam to do such a major surgery together. Who in the medical center doesn't know that the success rate of major surgeries will be greatly improved with Adam's cooperation? That is to say, there are no major surgeries that require assistance at the same time, otherwise Dr. Shept can already foresee that there will be a scene of scrambling for Dr. Duncan to be an assistant. For general surgeries, no one is embarrassed to ask Adam to be an assistant. Adam, like Dr. Bailey and other most senior residents, is the independent operator of the surgery. Like Meredith and others, although they are also residents now, they still have to follow the chief surgeon step by step to perform the surgery. Dr. Bailey would walk to the operating board, take a look, and if he found a surgery he had never done before, or a special surgery, he would directly reach out and add his name on the operating board, and then he could participate in the surgery. Adam, of course, went a step further. He came whenever he wanted, and he didn't even need to reserve a spot in advance at the operating board. It should be. Adam smiled, looked at Christina who stood up again, and teased. Thanks to Christina's loving reminder, the patient listened and restrained the instinct to struggle. Yang, well done. Dr. Shept was also generous in praising his ex-girlfriend Meredith's bestie. Although he has not reconciled with Meredith directly now, it is inevitable to encounter ambiguous glances in the hospital. Obviously, reconciliation is also imminent. Of course, the girlfriend's bestie must be won over. I'm not Zuni. Are you sure it's not the effect of anesthesia? Christina was very unimpressed by Adam's call for her loving heart. Believe me, Your words worked before anesthesia. Adam looked at her and smiled. It seems that our Dr. Yang is not so cold. Of course I'm not cold, Christina sneered. If every patient is as rare as this magic zombie, I will love every one of them. Everyone was speechless. Numbers 1 to 4 shrank their necks and had a deeper understanding of their boss's love. They can't bear this kind of love. Adam smiled but said nothing. Christina, of course, was indifferent. But he knew that this time it was not like what she said, that it was not just because the patient was a magic zombie that she was so loving, but that the patient himself or the patient's family really touched her. Chapter 731 Adam, George, this is the first vibration. Observe the operating room. Adam and the other two were performing surgery. The little man and Carter were credited with massaging the legs, so after they were re-anesthetized and released, they stayed by the operating table, observing this rare surgery from a closer distance than Christina's number 1 to 4 men, with a better surgical field of view. Carter couldn't control the curve of his mouth. The little man tried to be calm, but his eyes were still too hot when he looked at the spine being reattached in the surgical area. If the head and tail were cut off and made into an animated picture, it would definitely be a classic emoticon. In the observation room on the second floor, the fat man George O'Malley's face was slightly distorted. He had been an intern for a whole year, and he had not encountered such rare surgeries. Not to mention that he was set as an example by Dr. Burke when he was on duty for the first time. A simple appendectomy was forcibly given the sinister code name of 007. And what are his rookie colleagues doing now? In less than 12 hours, they have participated in 2 high-level operations. But he and Meredith's sister were punished by Adam and were kept out, doing nothing. Yes, it was wrong for Lexi to stop Meredith, who was rushing to the hospital at the emergency room door, but that was because the 2 sisters had never met before. It was understandable that she was excited at the moment. And what did he do to anyone? He just introduced Lexi to her sister's situation, and then he didn't pull Lexi away immediately. Adam really has no mercy at all. After George complained, he felt a little enlightened and emotional. He used to think that Dr. Bailey was a nagging person, but now it seems that compared with Adam, Dr. Bailey is as gentle as a real mother. George, I'm sorry. After such a long period of calm, Lexi also completely understood what happened. Looking at the 2 high-spirited colleagues in the operating room, and then looking at George, who was punished because of her, she couldn't help but feel apologetic. It's all my fault. I caused you to be punished by Dr. Duncan. It doesn't matter. George met Lexi's sincere eyes, and his warm manly personality came online again. He smiled helplessly and said, "It's my fault. Don't block the door of the emergency room. This is common sense. I didn't remind you in time." "No, it's my fault," Lexi said quickly. "It was when I was waiting for the ambulance that I insisted on asking you about my sister, which made Dr. Duncan have an opinion on you." George was speechless, because he really didn't think of this part. "George, what should we do now?" Seeing that George acquiesced that it was her fault, Lexi felt a little better. She looked at Adam, who was talking and laughing in the operating room while performing surgery, and said anxiously. She regarded Adam as an idol. Even the residency training plan after graduation gave up the Massachusetts General Hospital and chose the medical center. "Don't think that the medical center," she said, "is not inferior to the Massachusetts General Hospital, but even with the halo of Adam, the hottest new star, the medical center is still not as good as the Massachusetts General Hospital in the ranking of teaching hospitals." This is a major decision related to her career and life. Her admiration for Adam is obvious, although she has successfully become an intern under Adam and can get closer to her idol. But first she was told that she was absolutely not allowed to have an intimate relationship with her superior doctor, and then she was directly punished by her idol because of her unprofessional performance. She felt so sad when she thought that her image in Adam's mind would no longer be perfect in this posture. "Don't worry," the warm-hearted George couldn't help but comfort her. "After this operation is over, we will go to Adam to admit our mistakes, and then." At this point, he originally wanted to ask Meredith and Christina to help say a few words together, but inexplicably thought of the sentence Adam said to them in a joking tone before, "You teach me how to do things?" And the words on his lips changed directly. "When the time comes, we will admit our mistakes directly," sincerely admit our mistakes, and never make such unprofessional mistakes again in the future. George changed his tone. First of all, Meredith may not be willing to speak for Alexei. Secondly, Christina is probably unwilling to speak for him. Thirdly, he guessed that even if they spoke up, the punishment would not only not be lifted, but would be doubled and continued. In this case, it would be better to admit the mistake honestly and accept the beating and scolding. Adam was just a little strict, not as sharp-tongued as Christina. Yeah, Lexi nodded repeatedly after hearing this. Her admiration for Adam now was not like her carnivore sister, the old driver, who had to taste his wish. Since Adam set the rules, she secretly decided in her heart that she must strictly abide by these rules, follow Adam, learn the best medical skills, and let Adam look at her differently. As for the future, isn't it just that you can't have an intimate relationship with the senior doctor? After the internship period ends in 1 year, she will be a resident like Adam, and the relationship between them will be equal. Of course, she didn't know that Adam was preparing to become a chief resident. Otherwise, she would extend this time to 7 years, because the training period for surgical residents is 7 years. After 7 years, she will be promoted to an attending physician and be qualified to be equal to Adam. Of course, Adam couldn't be the chief of surgery or the dean at that time. Anyway, how does that saying go? Young Lexi Gray, you know nothing. 2 hours later, the operation was successfully completed. The operating room was filled with shouts of joy and applause. Creating the miracle of life is always so exciting. Dr. Duncan, George and Lexi hurriedly left the observation room and ran outside the operating room, waiting for Adam to come out, and immediately admitted their mistakes. I was wrong too. Yeah, Adam kept walking. What's wrong? George and Lexi hurriedly trotted to catch up and began to seriously review. Carter, who was in high spirits, looked at them like this, and then thought of himself, and couldn't help laughing out loud. Carter. Adam stopped and looked at Carter. Yes, Dr. Duncan. Carter quickly restrained his smile, looked at Adam expectantly, and waited for instructions. The emergency department needs a surgeon to take over. You go over, Adam ordered. Carter opened his mouth wide, totally unexpected. Is there a problem? Adam glanced at him. No problem. Carter forced a smile. I'll go now. Melendez, you go too. Adam looked at the little man. Okay. The little man accepted calmly without saying anything. Carter followed the little man slowly and went to the emergency room, which he disliked the most. In his eyes, the emergency room was dirty, messy and tiring, and it didn't look like a real doctor's job at all. Only surgeons were real doctors. This was one of the reasons why he applied for a surgical residency. But unexpectedly, Adam suddenly kicked him back to the emergency room. Melendez, do you know where the emergency room is? Carter walked to the corner and couldn't help it anymore. He said to the little man, okay, you go first. I have something to do. I'll be there soon. With that, he ran quickly to the nurse's station. He wanted to find the most knowledgeable little nurse to ask what was wrong with the kidney. George, this is the first strike. Adam raised a finger at George and reminded him, you are not a newbie like Lexi who knows nothing. You have been an intern for a whole year, so you should know what to do and what not to do. Because you are my friend, so in addition to not breaking the 5 rules that cannot be broken, you have 3 chances. After 3 strikes, you are out. Do you understand? George. Chapter 732 37 degrees and 45 degrees. Medical Center. In the corridor, Adam used Sheldon's strikeout theory to warn George. Although it was the first time to use it, not only George, but even Lexi understood it, because this strikeout theory is actually a rule in baseball, and baseball is the second largest sport in the United States after football. Almost everyone has seen it and has a general understanding of the rules, and some well-known baseball stars. Girls are no exception. Sheldon's twin sister Missy also joined the baseball team when she was a child and became the first local female baseball player. Well, in fact, this is also due to her charming grandmother. You know, the baseball team coach sneered at the beginning, how can a girl play baseball? In order to pursue Missy's grandmother, the baseball team coach could only accept Missy despite the confusion. ridicule and jealousy of others. But those old men of the same age who have seen the charm of Missy's grandmother are jealous. The influence of baseball is not only that. Take the medical staff in the emergency room of the medical center for example. Before the frequent accidents in the hospital forced the implementation of the maximum working hours of 80 hours per week and the nurses went on strike, everyone was exhausted and worked almost non-stop. But even so, the medical staff in the emergency room formed a baseball team and squeezed out time to play several baseball games every month. There are male doctors, female doctors, male nurses and female nurses in the baseball team. The enthusiasm of female doctors and female nurses is always the highest. Newcomers, regardless of gender, are eager to join, because being able to join means being recognized by everyone, integrating into the team, and becoming one of their own. A glimpse of the whole picture. In this context, when Adam said 3 strikes and you're out, George and Lexi naturally understood it. Follow me. Adam saw that many people were looking over here, and he didn't want George to be embarrassed, so he motioned for them to follow him to his office. It is not a good habit to punish without teaching, especially for friends, and this is a teaching hospital. The 3 strikes and you're out theory was also tailored for George by him, so naturally he had to explain it clearly first. Adam's office. George, do you have a lot of questions? Adam smiled and said, do you think I'm too unkind? No. George shook his head reluctantly, but he couldn't finish his words of denial, because Adam was indeed very unkind, even more so than Dr. Bailey. George, our relationship has changed now. In order not to affect our friendship, we need to have a good talk. Adam said frankly, let me ask you, what are your aspirations in your career? George was stunned. Look, Adam patiently analyzed it for him. Christina and I, needless to say, always want to be the best surgeons. Meredith also has this idea, but she wants to prove to her mother, a legendary doctor, that she is also very good. After her mother got Alzheimer's disease and forgets things easily, this idea has become weaker. Because of her efforts, it is difficult to get feedback from a mother who sometimes forgets and can't remember why she said she was not good enough. So, she is now drifting with the flow, more like a TV show about falling in love with a handsome doctor. But she has good talent, and we are indirectly pulling her from the side, so her medical skills are still good. But that's all. Lexi had a strange expression when she heard this. She really didn't expect that her sister would be like this in the eyes of her idol. Then am I not the supporting actor in this TV series? George couldn't help but laugh at himself when he heard this. Who is the first male lead, Dr. Shept or you? I'm not in Meredith's TV series. Adam laughed, because I rejected her invitation to drink from the beginning, and you are indeed the first supporting actor in Meredith's TV series. Why? Lexi was surprised at first, then she thought of something and widened her eyes. Did George also accept my sister's invitation to drink? George and my sister. Adam couldn't help laughing. Remember what I told you last night? Now you know why I emphasize the first rule so much. Lexi shuddered. If Adam wasn't there, she would actually like George, a warm man, but she never expected. It's hard to guard against. She doesn't want to become that kind of sister with her half-sister. Adam. George was embarrassed by Lexi's gaze. Okay, let's get down to business, Adam continued. Then there's Liz who left. After she met Danny, she knew what she wanted. So she gambled on her career, which she always valued, by any means. Now she has left the hospital and become the wife or girlfriend of a handsome rich second generation. Alex, on the other hand, shouldn't have been there. He didn't even pass the exam at the beginning, and he didn't even get a doctorate in medicine. His performance was as bad as his academic performance, and he hurt people a lot. Now he is back to where he should be. This is from the same batch as us. Now let's talk about your new colleagues. Melendez is, needless to say, a top student at Johns Hopkins. She chose this place with the intention of becoming a legend. Lexi, a top student at Harvard Medical School, chose this place because of her sister, but I believe her biggest goal is to reach the pinnacle of medicine and achieve a career. Hearing this, Lexi looked at Adam excitedly and nodded repeatedly. This is indeed her biggest goal. In her heart, Adam is the pinnacle of medicine. Then there's Carter. Adam smiled at Lexi, and looked at George again. He went to the worst school and his talent is average, but he has good vision and perseverance, and he also wants to become a famous doctor. So the question is, what is your goal, George O'Malley? To become a famous doctor? Not really. You haven't worked that hard, and you don't have that mentality. You barely passed the MD exam, and in the certification exam a few days ago, you obviously did well in your one-year internship. At least you wouldn't be the last, but you happened to be the third from the bottom and were eliminated directly. This is no longer a question of whether you want to become a famous doctor, but whether you want to continue to be a doctor. Since your goal is not to be a famous doctor, then you are ready to become a doctor who goes with the flow and muddles around. But in that case, why are you still following me? I think the name that I crossed out was personally selected by the director, and the intern you replaced should be aiming to become a famous doctor. George's fat face flushed instantly when he heard this, and he reluctantly defended himself. I also want to be a famous doctor. Okay. Adam nodded without comment. You are my friend. Since you said so, you are naturally qualified to replace the intern whose name was crossed out. But you can't say that you want to become a famous doctor while doing very unprofessional things. Your words and actions are always completely inconsistent, right? Now you understand why I proposed the rule of 3 strikes to you in addition to the 5 rules that cannot be violated. Understood. George was ashamed. He has been an intern for a year and knows all the rules he should know. In fact, if he hadn't performed poorly in the exam, he would have been supervising interns now. As a result, his performance is not as good as that of several rookie interns. This is a bit unreasonable. Now Adam has given him 3 more chances. If he is still struck out, then he can only blame himself for being inconsistent in his words and deeds, wasting Adam's time and the opportunity of the poor intern whose name was crossed out. Adam, as the boss friend, has done his best. George, I know you are a warm-hearted man, Adam teased, but whether in the hospital or in society, warm-hearted men are not popular. They are always regarded as male besties or good backup men. Because humans are warm-blooded animals, no matter how warm you are, it will only be 37 degrees, and it is impossible to reach 45 degrees in bel canto chorus. The difference between male and female voices is only 8 degrees. The difference of 8 degrees is already the difference of one gender. George. P.S. Thanks to idol Gareth Bale for the reward. Chapter 733 Pretty Woman George Medical Center. Adam's private office. When the 37 and 45 degree joke came out, George was confused and didn't react. But it didn't prevent him from understanding what Adam meant. This also hit his biggest realization recently. It's easy to be a male best friend, but he never gets what he wants. Instead, he always ends up being a scapegoat. Unlike George, when Lexi was at Harvard Medical School, she was always known as Lexi Encyclopedia. It means that she has a good memory and loves to read, so she knows a lot. When Adam said 37 and 45 degrees, her little brain started to spin. 37 degrees is easy to understand. It's the normal human body temperature. As for the number 45 degrees, she thought about it again and again, and finally found the relevant data in Lexi Encyclopedia. Then her face flushed. She didn't dare to look Adam in the eye, and her heart was numb. Everyone has different degrees of sensitivity to temperature, but after professional testing, 45 degrees is generally considered to be the temperature that makes people feel hot. Dr. Duncan is really funny. He called George a warm man, so the normal human body temperature limit of 37 degrees is used to refer to warm men, which is very appropriate. It is also said that warm men are often regarded as spare tires for good people, so the corresponding one is naturally a bad man. Dr. Duncan is also a bad man. Shu Renju said, "Women don't love men who are not bad." After Lexi realized that she had figured out the meaning of Adam's words, she just felt that Adam was really funny. The uneasiness and confusion that she had been punished by Adam for making mistakes before dissipated instantly. She gave up the residency training at Massachusetts General Hospital and went to New York Medical Center. It was indeed the right choice, not to mention the future impact on the pinnacle of medicine. Even now, following Dr. Duncan, he is super handsome, unparalleled in talent, and speaks well. She really likes it here. Adam didn't know that Lexi thought of these, but even if he knew, he would only smile and say, "This is only the first layer. Although I can't create a fifth-floor building and an atmosphere with just one sentence, at least there is a second layer." In the bel canto choir, the male voice is an octave lower than the female voice. The legendary tuner and supreme conductor Owen Lee, who formed the Eternal Spear Choir, is more knowledgeable. As the public enemy of all the boys in the school, Owen Lee was also a supervillain who was pointed at by thousands of people. "Adam, what should I do?" George asked seriously. "It's very simple." Adam smiled and said, "You must have your own specialty, either talent or wealth. With any of these two halos, a warm man can automatically heat up. In fact, it's not bad to be a warm man like you. Meredith, Liz, Kelly, Olivia, any woman who is close to you. Which one is not very close to you?" Speaking of this, he glanced at Lexi playfully. Lexi subconsciously moved a step away from George. "Liz and I didn't," George retorted immediately. "It's just that Liz didn't reveal it before she left." Adam shook his head and said, "You two are so open about being best friends. If you stay together for too long, something will happen sooner or later." George was speechless. He and Liz had the closest relationship, so close that when he was taking a shower in the bathroom, Liz would brush her teeth and chat beside him, and they would often lie in bed together. With Liz's looks and figure, it would be a joke to say that he had never fantasized about her. In fact, he had not only fantasized about her, but also fantasized about Christina. As a male best friend, if you don't want to take the next step emotionally, there are actually very few who can do this. You are already top-notch, Adam teased, but you seem to be dissatisfied with this. You always think a lot, and put all the time and energy that should be used for professional polishing on trying to figure out your best friend. Your best friend is in a bad mood, or has a kidney problem. Should you comfort her? How to comfort her, etc. The result is that everything about you is good, but not outstanding enough. In other words, you are relatively mediocre and have no special skills. When there are many extremely outstanding men to choose from, ask which woman likes mediocre men. As long as they don't give up on these extremely outstanding men, you will always be their sweet best friend. Of course, if you can endure accompanying her for more than 10 years, grinding away your opponents or making your best friend give up, that's fine. So I should focus all my energy on medicine. George murmured. You have no money, and you don't have the looks to make money. Adam analyzed. If you want to be a talented person, besides working hard in the medicine you have studied for 5 years, and striving to become a famous doctor, is there any better choice? If Dr. Schefter was not a top neurosurgeon, do you think Meredith would be so fascinated by him? If Dr. Burke was not a top cardiothoracic surgeon, do you think Christina, who is only focused on medicine, would be so proactive? George shook his head subconsciously. How could he forget that he was the first to find Meredith at the interns' reporting party? And he also saw that at the party, Dr. Burke was actually talking and laughing with an African-American beauty. The newcomer Christina walked over directly, interrupted the atmosphere, and repeatedly expressed that she admired Dr. Burke. According to Meredith's gossip, Christina and Dr. Burke got together later, and it was Christina who walked directly into the duty room, locked the door, and woke up Dr. Burke. Dr. Schept might be good-looking enough, but Dr. Burke, George felt that he was just on par with him. Only a top doctor could convince the sharp-tongued Christina and make him fantasize about Christina so proactive. Yes, George, Lexi echoed. Dr. Duncan is right. Women are easily attracted to strong men. You have a good chance of becoming a strong man, because you are following Dr. Duncan. As long as you are focused enough and work hard enough, you will definitely be able to do it. Yeah. George nodded repeatedly, then thought of something and asked in confusion, but Kelly seems to like someone like me. Speaking of now, he has always been targeting Meredith and forgot that his current girlfriend is Kelly. So Kelly is also a backup for backup George, aka Kelly is Meredith's second child. It's the same as men liking beautiful women. Adam smiled and said, of course it's all good at the beginning, but after a long time, if a beautiful woman doesn't have an interesting soul, men will soon get tired of her. Now Kelly likes your warm masculine personality, so everything is naturally all good, but after half a year or a year, you remain unchanged. Do you think Kelly will still like you as much as she does now? Don't test human nature. A good iron must be strong. If you can't keep improving yourself, you will be left behind one day." George was silent. These words made him wake up from a dream. He also studied a little psychology and knew that what Adam said was right. Once the gap between men and women is too large, one of them will inevitably become a vassal, and then as the gap continues to widen, this unequal vassal relationship is sometimes hard to maintain and difficult to obtain. Think about his girlfriend Kelly, who is now a chief resident, the boss of the boss, and she spends her days in a high-end hotel. Before, she rented an office in the hospital like Adam, so her family is probably very well off. The gap between them was really huge, and the relationship was maintained only because Kelly liked him. That was the truth. But he always felt that something was wrong. When he walked out of Adam's office, he suddenly realized that Adam completely regarded him as a soulless beautiful woman. Chapter 734. The Tathagata Palm That Understands the Little Nurse the Most. Medical Center. George realized Adam's teasing belatedly, but he still decided to follow Adam's words and start working hard, putting more energy and time into medicine. It's not that he was ambitious because of Adam's words, but he was already like this. If he didn't work hard and was struck out by Adam, it would be too embarrassing. Moreover, he was indeed worried that he would be abandoned because of his old age. Although Kelly was actively pursuing him and regarded him as her Mr. Dream, she had invested much more in this relationship than he did. It was as if Kelly was afraid that he would break up with her, but this was actually an illusion, because these were all Kelly's active behaviors. If one day she didn't want to take the initiative anymore, she could take the initiative to leave without hesitation. At that time, he would probably be reluctant to leave, sad and upset, and become an abandoned resentful woman. The initiative from beginning to end was in Kelly's hands. After all, he was not the kind of god who could live a life of luxury. Adam looked at their leaving figures, shook his head and smiled. A bystander sees clearly. He had long noticed that George had the potential to be a gigolo. Kelly is a senior resident, and now she is the chief resident. Her family is very rich. As for her appearance and figure, people have different opinions. In the world of American dramas, there are also many people who admire her. Such a royal sister is very obsessed with George. Not only did she put aside her face and dignity as a senior doctor and took the initiative to pursue him, she even covered for her rival Meredith for George and took the initiative to claim the sinful underwear nailed to the bulletin board by Dr. Montgomery in public. This kind of flattering behavior is far more than once. Now she is almost living with George. She lives directly in a 5-star hotel suite. Although according to George, Kelly is a relative of the owner of this 5-star hotel and can get a very big discount, and he insists on splitting it equally, giving $200 a week for food and accommodation. But every time Adam heard this, he had to endure it again and again to stop laughing. It's not like he hasn't stayed in this 5-star hotel before. Many senior officials in the hospital, such as the chief of surgery who was kicked out by his wife and Mark Sloan, who had just arrived, were frequent visitors here. Most of the patients in the VIP ward stayed in this 5-star hotel before being hospitalized. Adam knew everything about the cost. Don't even think about it if you don't have $300 a day. Even if there are discounts for long-term stays, it will not be less than $250 a day. In addition, after George lived there, he liked the breakfast there and had breakfast in the hotel almost every day. The minimum consumption for a meal is also $50 per person. According to preliminary estimates, to live George's current exquisite life, the weekly bill is at least more than $2,500. This is not counting the tips for the service every day, and it is impossible to eat breakfast every day just at the minimum consumption. The figure of $2,500 can be easily exceeded. $3,000 is easy, and $4,000 is not a dream. George gave $200 a week, half of which is for food and accommodation. Isn't that really a big deal? The fracture discount that Kelly, an orthopedic resident, made up was quite interesting. Adam suspected that Kelly just couldn't beat George's self-esteem, so she just asked him to pay a little money and split the bill. In fact, this little money was probably a tip to the cleaner. From this point of view, What's wrong with Adam describing George as a beauty? Here, Adam assigned the beauties George and Lexi to write the medical records first. Over there, Carter hurriedly found the most understanding nurse. Violet. Hey, isn't this Dr. Carter? The most understanding nurse saw Carter and teased. Dr. Carter, what do you want? Don't be ridiculous, Carter said anxiously. Dr. Duncan suddenly sent me back to the emergency room. Do you know what happened? This is your big doctor's business. How can we little nurses know? The most understanding nurse sneered. If Carter still couldn't hear the sarcasm at this time, he should be like Sheldon, smiling and saying, Violet, why are you talking in this tone? What tone? The most understanding little nurse said pretentiously. I am just a little nurse, and I have always spoken in this tone. Dr. Carter is a big doctor. Even my accent is unfamiliar to you. I was wrong. Carter couldn't stand it anymore and admitted his mistake directly. Violet, you tell me. I will definitely change it. Just kidding. Is the most understanding little nurse an ordinary nurse? That is his guiding light. If it weren't for the most understanding little nurse's guidance, he would not be able to become a surgical intern under Dr. Duncan. And even the emergency intern he despised the most would have no chance. And the most understanding little nurse is obviously a member of the team that Dr. Duncan is optimistic about, and is also the top supporter of Dr. Duncan in the medical center. Now the most understanding little nurse looks unhappy with him. Does he have any other choice except to admit his mistake decisively? HMPH. The most understanding nurse snorted. Now you know you're wrong. Why were you so arrogant before? You just became a doctor, and you look down on us nurses in various ways. I didn't, Carter shouted in injustice. No? The most understanding nurse sneered. Then who was the bossy one who asked Carol to bring him some barbecue, and he wanted chicken, not chicken thighs, and the beans were not too sweet, and he wanted cabbage salad, etc.? They didn't owe you anything. Bringing you some food is a favor, and not bringing it is their duty. Why did you order them to bring you food? And the requirements are so high? Is it because you are a doctor now? Dr. Carter? It was me, Carter said awkwardly. No, I didn't boss you around. I just asked. After saying this, he couldn't say anything more in the contemptuous eyes of the most understanding nurse, because he suddenly realized that his tone was indeed bossy at that time. Moreover, Nurse Carol asked sarcastically at that time, "Is there anything else you need, doctor?" As a result, he didn't hear it at all, but actually made a series of requests, without even saying thank you. You know, he used to be in front of Carol and behind Carol, with all kinds of warm and humble smiles. If the most understanding nurse hadn't said it, he really didn't notice that since he put on the formal doctor's white coat with the nameplate of Dr. Carter printed on it, he really became arrogant. And just now in the operating room, the most understanding nurse sneered, "When I helped you put on the surgical gown, you used to say thank you too diligently, but now, you don't even call me by my name. Hold your head high, and take it for granted. You just wrote we are different. Come and help me put on the surgical gown on your face. You are so arrogant that everyone can see it. Do you think Dr. Duncan can't see it?" I was wrong. Carter was ashamed. Many things are unknown until you say them. Once you say them, you really want to crawl into the cracks in the ground. Carter's arrogantness is obviously like this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735. The more you beat them, the more they become one of your own. Medical Center. Nurse's Station. Of course you're wrong. The most understanding nurse sneered. It's obvious that you are too arrogant. All of us are worried that you can't hold the knife. Dr. Duncan too? Carter said anxiously. To be a doctor, you must be calm and steady, the most understanding nurse reminded. Otherwise, you will not be able to hold a knife. Dr. Carter, are you calm and steady enough? Carter wanted to say that he was calm and steady enough, but when he met the most understanding nurse's playful eyes, he couldn't say it. Violent, Tell me everything." Carter gritted his teeth and begged. He had to die sooner or later. It's like he didn't know that he had mastered the peerless lightweight martial arts and floated the whole time he walked. God knows what shortcomings he has that he doesn't know. In the past, he was the only one following Dr. Duncan, and he didn't think it was a big deal. Now there are suddenly 3 competitors. Each of them put a lot of pressure on him, not to mention the short Melendez. He was just a weakened version of Dr. Duncan. It was Lexi and George, the ones he gloated over. One was a top student at Harvard Medical School, and the other was a senior surgical intern who had been doing internship for a year. Carter didn't think he was really better than them. Alas, he was no longer Dr. Duncan's only follower. Otherwise Dr. Duncan wouldn't have kicked him to the emergency room without saying anything. "Carter, you are still not stable enough. Your foundation is not solid." The most understanding nurse saw that Carter really knew he was wrong. So she stopped calling him Dr. Carter and kindly reminded him, "Take the simplest deep vein puncture. You can't be 100% successful. Sometimes you can do it once, and sometimes you can't find the right position." "What is this?" "This is a nurse." Carter subconsciously wanted to explain, and then said dejectedly, "My foundation is not solid." "Of course it's your foundation." The most understanding nurse shook her head and said, "If a doctor can't do such a simple job without a nurse, what kind of clinical doctor is he?" "What if you meet a new nurse who knows nothing and you can't rely on her? Then can you only helplessly shout for help?" Carter's face flushed. "That kind of scene is simply a nightmare. Dr. Duncan talked to you twice before, but you didn't take it to heart." The most understanding little nurse reminded her, "At that time, you were just a medical intern. You didn't know whether you could graduate and become a doctor, whether you would continue to be a doctor in the future, or whether you would come to the medical center for internship. Therefore, after the 2 times, Dr. Duncan stopped talking to you. This kind of thing depends on yourself. But now it's different. Dr. Duncan is officially teaching interns. I heard that he is preparing to train famous doctors. If you are still like before, without calming down and laying a solid foundation and redouble your efforts, you will definitely not even get the treatment you got as a medical intern. After all, although Dr. Duncan has a lot of resources, he will definitely give priority to interns he likes. This is only the first round of duty, so don't become an intern he doesn't like. Calm down, lay a solid foundation, redouble your efforts." Carter muttered the guidelines summarized by the most understanding little nurse, and became excited again. "I'll go to the emergency room now and do everything to the best of my ability." "That's right." The most understanding nurse smiled with satisfaction and said, "The first thing to do after you leave is to apologize to all the nurses. I heard that they are ready to teach you, Dr. Carter, a good lesson." Carter's face froze, and he quickly said goodbye to the most understanding nurse and went back to the emergency room. He sincerely apologized to every nurse he saw. He used to get along well with the nurses, so he naturally knew the horror of the nurses collectively teaching someone a lesson. Damn it, he was so arrogant that he even forgot about this. Adam's office. "Get some snacks, I'm starving." Christina and Meredith walked in, and as soon as they entered the door, they yelled and ran to Adam's refrigerator to find food. In the past, the row of trolleys against the wall of the corner corridor was their exclusive rest area. But since Alex and Liz left, there were fewer and fewer people, and Adam had his own office, so they often went to Adam's office for rest and chat. Alice Gray's private kitchen in the evening was also here. It's a habit. Of course, the most important thing here is that the conditions are really good. "I heard that you scolded George so much that he was stunned," Christina gossiped while eating snacks. "Next time, scold him in front of us, so that we can also watch the fun." She liked to watch the little fat boy George the most. Scolding is for his growth, not to make him evil. Adam rejected Christina's evil proposal without hesitation. Although the beauty George, even if he was 10 times stronger than the evil, would not be a threat. But how could a decent person like him bully others for no reason, and do it deliberately in public? He didn't beat others up, and he could make them feel good. It's a nonsensical skill that the more he beats, the more he likes his own people. What he was more worried about was that he succeeded without the skill. After all, the beautiful George looked like this, Maybe he really liked it. You met her in advance. Meredith stared at Adam dissatisfiedly. Why didn't you tell me? I met her for the first time last night. Adam naturally knew who this she was, and said indifferently, this is your sister's business. I have no interest in intervening. Didn't Mrs. Gray remind you that Lexi came to intern? Meredith was speechless. How could the current Mrs. Gray, the wife of her biological father, not mention it? She even invited her to meet her again and again, but she refused. She could try to accept the current Mrs. Gray who stole her mother's husband and was very motherly, but she was completely unwilling to accept Lexi who stole the father's love that she had longed for since she was a child. Seeing this, Adam smiled slightly and discussed the experience of surgery and interns with Christina. The little guy under you looks pretty good, Christina gossiped. He is a top student from Johns Hopkins University and he is from the same school as Dr. Burke. How can he not be amazing? Adam said with a smile. My four are all wooden, Christina complained. You have two geniuses and two veterans. Not only do they not bother you at all, but they can also help you with many chores. How about we change one? Whatever. Adam shrugged and said, as long as they are willing, you can change them at will. I am fine with it. Christina paused and couldn't help but raise her middle finger. This is a naked Versailles slap in the face. Haha. Adam said with a smile, it's up to you to supervise the interns. If you really don't want to bother, then just let them do it. How much they can learn is their luck. But if so, are you ready to face Dr. Bailey's roar? Christina was still laughing at first, looking very moved, but she couldn't laugh anymore after hearing the last sentence. Even though Dr. Bailey no longer cared about them, they still didn't want to face Dr. Bailey's roar. If you don't take your interns seriously, once Dr. Bailey finds out, he will definitely yell at you. She even has images and sounds in her mind. What are you doing, Christina Yang? Is this the attitude you learned from me? How did I train you in the first place? You can't even teach a few interns well. How dare you be so proud? What do you have to be proud of? Get back here and teach them well. Now, right now. Don't let me scold you every time I see you. Chapter 736. Cut yourself first. Late at night, it was the 18th hour of the intern's first shift. After the initial excitement or nervousness, all the interns began to feel tired. Adam, Christina, and Meredith began to joke about it after they came out of Alice Gray's private class. I'll go over there later. If I catch anyone sleeping now, I'll make sure he's in charge, Christina said maliciously. Our first shift was 48 hours, but now they've reduced it to 36 hours, and I, the boss, haven't had a rest yet. Forget it, Meredith advised. They're all interns, don't mess with them. Are you messing with them? Christina said seriously. We're teaching them, and I'm going to bed later, and I don't want to be woken up by them in the middle of my sleep. It's better to warn them first, let them cheer up, don't be lazy, and turn a small thing into a big thing, and then come and wake me up. Adam, what do you think? Me? Adam smiled and waved his hands. Don't bother me, you can do whatever you want. Hey, do you have any other ideas? Christina raised her eyebrows. It's not really an idea. Adam smiled and said, it's just that this is their first shift. You know, the first time is always so memorable, so I plan to accompany them all the time, so that they can have a fulfilling and memorable time. Always accompany them? 36 hours. Meredith's mouth twitched. Look, Christina complained, compared to Adam, I'm already kind enough. At least when I'm sleeping. As long as they don't call me and there are no patients who need to be rescued, I won't care if they take time to rest. Meeting Adam is their nightmare. Okay, it's time to go see them. Adam said goodbye to Christina and the others, and went to the emergency room. Tonight's Alice Gray special meal. Adam deliberately shortened the time, so that they could take a break, eat something, and replenish their energy. A new busyness is about to begin. Emergency room, nurse's station. How is it? Adam didn't go to his interns immediately, but asked the nurse. They are all very serious. The nurse pointed her lips over there, especially Dr. Melendez. He has been busy since he came here. His level is also very high. After Carter came back and apologized to us, he also began to calm down and start with small things, and no longer aiming too high. O'Malley is still the same. That little Gray has a good personality, but he seems a little too kind. I don't know if he can make it. Let's wait and see. Adam nodded. What the nurse observed was similar to his speculation. Adam was not too worried about the three male doctors. They were either experienced, thick-skinned, or rational enough, so there was no big problem. Only Lexi had a good personality and a kind heart. This kind of personality is good as a person, but it is a bit troublesome to be a doctor. A kind heart is prone to emotion. When emotion collides with life and death, either restrain emotion and make it through, or be too emotional and destroyed, before it really happens. No one knows how Lexi will behave. Bang! The door of the emergency room was pushed open heavily. What's going on? Adam walked over quickly. The little guy, Carter, George, and Lexi all rushed over. The 40-year-old speeding driver flipped over in an MVC and lost vital signs on the screen. We can't intubate him, the paramedic said quickly. How long has he been unconscious? Adam asked as he checked. 20 minutes to load him and 14 minutes to get him there, the paramedic said. 2 doses of adrenaline have been injected. Little Gray, Adam shouted. Yes. Lexi's body tensed. Intubate him, Adam ordered. Do you know how to intubate? I haven't done it, Lexi said nervously. But you've seen it, Adam shouted. Pick up the intubation, and be quick. The nurse immediately handed the intubation in her hand to the trembling Lexi. Dr. Duncan. Lexi took the cannula tremblingly. Are you sure I should do it? Are you a doctor? Adam shouted. Stop talking nonsense. Listen to my instructions. Imagine the trachea, pay close attention to the cannula, and insert it directly. I can't see the cannula. Lexi nervously inserted the cannula into the patient's mouth, then looked up in panic and said, why don't you do it, or let George and the others do it? Melendez, you take over CPR. Adam glanced at the three of them, motioned for the little man to come forward and take over CPR, then walked to Lexi and said softly, this is your chance. Take a deep breath and do what I say. It's very simple. You can do it. Watch out. Don't touch the teeth. Just insert it. I inserted it. I inserted it. Under Adam's guidance, Lexi inserted the cannula tremblingly, and shouted excitedly. She looked up and smiled, but she found that George and Carter were not very excited. Very good. Adam nodded to Lexi, then signaled to the little man, Melendez. It's okay. The little man stopped CPR. What are you doing? Lexi screamed. Why don't you rescue him? No need to rescue. He's dead. Adam looked at her. You did a good job. I think you haven't announced the time of death yet. You can announce it now. What? Lexi was stunned. He's dead? He was dead when he came. George couldn't help but say, it's been so long, and all the emergency measures such as injecting epinephrine have been used. You should know that he is dead. The little man Melendez glanced at her. Harvard Medical School? That's it? Johns Hopkins is really reliable. Then what were we doing just now? Lexi murmured. Complete what the law requires us to do, Adam said gently, and use the tradition of the teaching hospital to make his death more valuable, to teach you, and if you encounter a similar situation in the future, maybe you can save a wounded person who is not dead yet. This is too cruel. Lexi looked at Adam in disbelief, and then looked at George and Carter. Seeing them nod, she realized that this is really the tradition of the teaching hospital. Finally, she looked at Adam with tears in her eyes. We are doctors. Adam looked at her. Every day we face this kind of separation of life and death. If we can't cut a knife in our hearts first, cut off a piece of kindness, cut off fear and emotion, how can we have the courage to operate on patients and take responsibility for the life or death of patients? Tears fell silently from the corners of Lexi's eyes. Time of death 135. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the genius. Chapter 737. Fight her, Medical Center. The first experience is not always so good. If it was Christina, or Meredith who disliked Lexi, in the same situation, the same teaching, but a different tone and expression, I am afraid Lexi would not be able to accept it. Fortunately, Adam was patient enough. However, after Lexi accepted Adam's words and announced the time of death for the first time with tears in her eyes, Adam still let her take a rest and adjust for a while. There were fewer people coming to the hospital for medical treatment in the second half of the night, but Adam still stayed and took them to take over one case after another. The 24th hour of the first shift, a new day began. Adam, who was still energetic, started the ward rounds with the 4 mentally exhausted people. After resting for a few hours, Lexi barely suppressed her first discomfort and rejoined the team. She knew the truth. Since she chose the profession of doctor and was ready to reach the pinnacle of medicine, it would be ridiculous if she couldn't even take the first step. It's not like she hasn't seen dead people before. And strictly speaking, this deceased person did not die in her hands. Adam had only created a simulated environment for her, so the shock it brought her was naturally much smaller than the shock caused by actually dying in her hands. She recovered quickly afterwards, but the valuable experience of emergency rescue with life hanging by a thread was real. This kind of simulated experience is not something everyone has the opportunity to encounter. Adam told Lexi that this was her chance, and it was very serious. Beep, beep. The pager on Adam's waist rang. Another major accident? George couldn't help asking. Yeah. Adam nodded and led them to the emergency room door while wearing disposable protective clothing. They knew what happened on the way. Gas explosion in the apartment. I need a resident to help me sit in the outpatient clinic and supervise the interns while I treat patients. Dr. Bailey, wearing protective clothing, came over and said to Kelly, the chief resident who was dressed in the same way, and then walked past Kelly and walked to the front of the team of doctors who were ready for battle. Sorry, I can't help. Chief Resident Kelly's voice came from behind, not only stopping Dr. Bailey who was just saying hello, but also attracting the attention of all the doctors waiting for the ambulance. Wow, Dr. Bailey and Dr. Tallis, are they going to fight? I bet Dr. Bailey will win. I bet Dr. Tallis, no matter what, she is still the chief resident. I knew this would happen. Dr. Tallis wants to establish the prestige of the chief resident, so she must give Dr. Bailey, the original first candidate and the spiritual leader of the residents, a hard blow. TSK. According to what you said, she will cause trouble for Dr. Duncan later? Dr. Duncan is different. The doctors looked at each other and whispered. Adam glanced at George. George lowered his head and pretended to know nothing. One was his respected former mentor, and the other was his girlfriend. He didn't want to offend anyone. Can't you help? Dr. Bailey turned around, his eyes sharp. Yes, Bailey. Kelly looked at Bailey without hesitation. The free clinic is voluntary. As the chief resident, I cannot force any resident or intern to help, especially in such a busy time. If you are in the operating room, you can have as many interns as you want. Otherwise, you have to figure out how to balance your main job and your part-time job. Understand? Dr. Bailey moved her mouth, rolled her eyes, and tilted her body. People who are familiar with her know that this is her fighting posture. Fight her, fight her. Christina's eyes were full of expectation, and she muttered in a low voice. George glared at her fiercely. Don't think about it. Adam smiled and said, you can't argue with her. Why? Christina was puzzled. Do you think Dr. Bailey doesn't dare to argue with her? Not that he doesn't dare, but that he doesn't want to. Adam shook his head and said, Kelly is the chief resident after all, and what she said is the hospital regulations. What does it mean for Dr. Bailey to argue with her in public? Sure enough, Dr. Bailey pursed his lips and didn't say anything in the end. He just turned around and walked to the front, looking in the direction of the ambulance. This is power. Christina shook her head. The director said something to let Dr. Bailey focus more on the operating room. She is still an excellent chief resident, but this name is not legitimate, and she suffered a loss in the end. Yang. Dr. Bailey heard this and glared at him. Since you care about me so much, why don't you help me manage the outpatient clinic? You are wrong. I don't care about you. I just sigh for power. Christina looked up at Dr. Bailey and didn't respond to what Dr. Bailey said. Just kidding. For her, the free outpatient clinic is a more torturous place than the emergency room. After all, the emergency room also has urgent diseases that need to be diagnosed and treated. The outpatient clinic is more about checking minor illnesses and preventing major illnesses. Many times, the people who come here are not sick. It would be better to kill her if she were to be in charge of the outpatient clinic. She admired Dr. Bailey and took him as a role model, but it was impossible for her to make sacrifices or react to this. Dr. Bailey was almost amused by Christina's appearance, and couldn't help but look at Meredith again. Meredith looked away directly, not looking at Dr. Bailey. O'Malley. Adam said, wait a minute. What? George was stunned. You are an intern and have the strength of a resident. You are the most suitable candidate." Adam smiled. "Yes." Dr. Bailey's eyes lit up. "Thank you, Adam." "You're welcome." Adam smiled at Dr. Bailey, then looked at George. "You can learn things in the outpatient clinic. When there is an operation, I will consider letting you participate more. It is not a dream to perform the main operation in advance." "But Kelly." George's eyes lit up, and he was immediately moved. "This is a surgery to perform the main operation. Even Christina and Meredith haven't had a chance yet." But reason told him that doing so would simply be a slap in the face of his girlfriend, and the risk was too great. "Why don't you just go there secretly and keep it quiet?" Adam reminded. "Okay." George gritted his teeth and agreed. First, the temptation of being the lead surgeon was too great. Second, if something went wrong, he could completely blame Adam. After all, he was just an intern under Adam. What else could he do except be obedient? Kelly would understand him. Adam smiled. He naturally saw what George was thinking, but he didn't mind. The free clinic hosted by Dr. Bailey was actually a great good deed, giving those who couldn't afford to participate in medical insurance the opportunity to discover diseases in advance and prevent minor illnesses from becoming major diseases. The funds for opening this free clinic were all provided by Adam. Adam naturally didn't mind helping out. As for whether Kelly would be angry with him if she knew about it, Adam believed that even if she was angry, she wouldn't be angry for a long time, and she wouldn't bear a grudge. First, he didn't violate the hospital regulations. George was his intern, so naturally he was in charge of him, and he had also sought George's consent, which was a voluntary help. Secondly, he had considered her face and asked George to do it secretly and not to make it public. Besides, if Kelly was going to hold a grudge for supporting such a great charity, then she would be too narrow-minded and mean. Is such a mean-spirited and narrow-minded person really suitable to be the chief resident? Chapter 738. This is the Beijia Medical Center. At the entrance of the emergency room, several ambulances came roaring in. Adam was the first to meet them. Mara Christ, 34 years old, female, abdominal rupture, head fracture, third-degree burns. At least 40% of the skin is directly infected, the paramedic said quickly while pushing the gurney out of the ambulance. "Okay, leave it to me." Adam took over and ordered, "Notify Dr. Shept to prepare operating room number 2. Melendez, Little Gray, follow me." "Yes." The little man and Lexi followed immediately. "Dr. Duncan, what about me?" Carter asked after trotting. "You stay and help Dr. Bailey." Adam looked back at him and ordered. "Yes." Carter could only stay reluctantly and watch the little man and Lexi follow Adam to the operating room. After Dr. Bailey took over Christina and the others, he now has no one under him. If he needs to find a resident, he needs to coordinate with the chief resident Kelly, and if he needs to find an intern, he needs to coordinate with Christina and the others who are leading the interns. If Chief Resident Kelly insisted on making things difficult for her, it would be really uncomfortable. Operating room 2. Adam was in charge of the chest and abdomen, and Dr. Shept was in charge of the brain. The little guy followed Adam, and Little Gray followed Dr. Shept. "Are you Meredith's sister?" Dr. Shept looked at Lexi, who was looking around and couldn't help asking during the intervals of the operation. "Yes, half-sister." Lexi smiled. "How are you and Meredith?" Dr. Shept chatted about daily life while performing the operation. "This is normal during the operation." Dr. House next door also did a video call to deal with the court trial while performing the operation. Of course, this is the privilege of genius doctors in the world of American TV series. They have already mastered these operations by heart, and talking and chatting does not affect their operation at all, but is a kind of adjustment. Just like the chief of surgery uses a new instrument to suture, even if he has never touched it before, he can do a perfect suture quickly and well with his eyes closed with his solid basic skills and muscle memory formed over decades. There are also super geniuses like Adam, being able to engage in high-intensity mental confrontation while also performing complex memory. Multitasking is just basic training, but if ordinary doctors want to imitate it, it would be completely irresponsible to the patient. "It's because of my family. I feel very uncomfortable." Lexi smiled bitterly. "And I think she hates me." "She doesn't hate you," Dr. Shept reminded. "Really?" Lexi was stunned. How do you know? Trust Dr. Shept. Adam was beside him, and while treating the injuries in the chest and abdomen with the help of the little man, he continued to talk and teased, "No one knows Meredith better than Dr. Shept. When he said Meredith doesn't hate you, your sister doesn't hate you, you and my sister." Lexi looked at Dr. Shept belatedly. Dr. Shept smiled slightly and said nothing. Lexi didn't understand at all, and subconsciously looked at Adam, just met Adam's playful eyes, and suddenly it was like 10,000 beasts running through her heart. Her sister Meredith. Dr. Duncan was right. It was so exaggerated. Whenever she thought a doctor was good, he had a close relationship with her sister. Buy a tight belt, don't drink, and don't have a close relationship with your superior doctor. This is indeed the most intimate personal advice given by Dr. Duncan. Who told me what the cause of this accident was? Adam suddenly asked. The apartment kitchen exploded, the most knowledgeable nurse immediately said. The patient started the stove in the kitchen, which caused an explosion. A hole was blown directly in the room. The neighbors were injured. The husband of the patient in the living room and their 1-year-old son, as well as a friend who came to visit them, were all affected. It seems that our patient is not an ordinary housewife, but a crazy chemist. Adam used tweezers to pick up a white crystal from the patient's chest and abdomen and put it under the spotlight for display. What is this? Lexi was surprised. Adam, you mean this is? Dr. Shept was also surprised. If I'm not mistaken, this is amphetamine. Adam observed the white crystal. She's making calf. Lexi immediately matched the chemical name of the drug with the daily necessities in American TV series. This is a synthetic drug that has a significant excitatory effect on the central nervous system. A high school chemistry teacher, Old White, is an absolute expert in this field. It's different from the combination of high school chemistry teacher Old White and his former dropout student Little Pink. This should be a husband and wife team. Yeah. Adam picked up another white crystal from the patient's chest and abdomen and nodded. The colors of these two are still slightly different. It seems that our patient is probably a crazy chemist with aspirations. She is purifying her own product. In the world of American TV series, amphetamine is easy to make. Just look at Little Pink. She is a complete student, but before dropping out of school, she learned a little chemistry from her high school teacher Old White. After dropping out of school, she can work on her own and succeed. Although the purity is garbage, it can be used for personal use and sold. And Penny's elder brother, who is always in jail, despises his sister for being just a salesperson, while he himself is an upstream chemist. He said he was not white trash, and showed a touching IQ. He can do it. You can imagine how common and simple this method is. The manufacturing is simple, so the key is purity. Ordinary chemists can only produce about 70% purity. The real chemistry master can produce purity up to about 96%. And like ordinary high school chemistry teacher Lao Bei, a hidden expert who almost won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, he produced an ultra-high purity of 99.9% at the first try. Then this new blue product with blue side reaction impurities in the chemical reaction quickly became popular in the world, defeating one old product after another. It can be seen that purity is precious in this industry. The white crystals that exploded and embedded in this patient's body have different purities. Most of them are uncontrollable accidents caused by patients exploring new processes and trying to further purify their products to obtain core competitiveness. Learning white chemistry like the expert Lao Bei and working hard on scientific research is a real white scientist. Violent, take this to the laboratory for urgent testing. Adam ordered, and notify the security guards to secretly monitor the patient's husband, neighbors, and the friend who dropped by to visit early in the morning to prevent any accidents. Although he compared the crystal with the information in his brain again and again, he was very sure that his guess was correct. But before 100% confirmation, such things cannot be reported to the police. However, for the safety of medical staff, it is better to let the hospital security guard secretly. When it comes to such a mess, it is never too cautious, because these people are on the edge of crime and can easily cause violent conflicts. Yes, Dr. Duncan. Violet agreed immediately. Chapter 739 Sin and Retribution, Medical Center. Operating Room 2. Making calves in your own apartment. Dr. Shep couldn't help but shake his head and sighed when he saw Adam finished his instructions. This is normal. Adam smiled and said, where else would most people find a place? When starting out small, they would definitely do it in their own apartment. After they grow bigger, they will consider renting a hidden place as a laboratory, or simply buy an RV and drive it to the wilderness every week. Do it for 2 days and 2 nights, then clean it up and come back to sell it. When it grows bigger, you can consider opening a company and doing regular business as a cover. For example, open a laundry factory and build a real chemical laboratory underground. All the raw materials, equipment, exhaust, and shipments needed for calf making can be hidden in it. When it grows bigger, you can go abroad directly, circle a place, and directly build a large group. Everyone in the operating room was stunned and stared at Adam in amazement. What's wrong? Adam said with a smile. Dr. Duncan, how are you so skilled? Lexi said in shock. You forgot that besides being a doctor, I am also a writer. Adam smiled and said, I must collect relevant information before writing. I was interested in this area and wanted to write a related crime novel, so I did a deep study. He is not a white scholar, so that's how it is. Everyone suddenly understood. Dr. Duncan is really amazing, the nurses exclaimed. Will we see this novel? Dr. Shep teased. Lord of Mysteries ended hastily, so I'm afraid there's no hope for this one, right? I'm done writing. Adam nodded and said, my goal now is to be a doctor who cures illnesses and saves lives. Ah, the nurse exclaimed, didn't they say that they would stop writing Lord of Mysteries? Why did they stop writing completely? Because I found that some people's brain circuits are more magical, Adam complained. A good fantasy work can broaden your perspective, but many people only focus on the darkness in the book. Even if there is no darkness, they can use the gimmick of the fantasy world in the book to create darkness in various ways and attract all kinds of monsters and demons. The lesson of Lord of Mysteries is too profound. If I write another crime novel, even if the value is to persuade people to stay away from it to avoid family breakdown, but God knows how many people with strange brain circuits will only see the quick money in it, and ignore the danger of crime and how much harm it causes to society and innocent people, so it's better not to write it at all. These people deserve to die. What a pity. Everyone sighed. Dr. Duncan, the samples have been sent over, and the laboratory is processing them urgently. Once the results are available, they will call you immediately. The most knowledgeable nurse came back after delivering the samples and said, the hospital security is in place, and each patient has a security guard on guard outside. How are the injuries of those patients? Adam nodded and asked casually. The neighbor and the friend who came to visit were seriously injured. The knowledgeable nurse had found out everything and introduced clearly. The neighbor is a 60-year-old man. He was reading the morning newspaper at home when the explosion occurred. He was affected by the shockwave of the blast and suffered 2nd to 3rd degree burns on his chest and upper abdomen, facial bruises, and a fractured shoulder bone. The friend who came to visit had severe bruising on his abdomen and suspected internal bleeding. However, during the court scan just now, his heart suddenly stopped beating and he was rescued by Dr. Yang. The accuracy of my guess has increased again. Adam smiled and said, the man who came to visit early in the morning is probably the Western poisoning thing. I've heard that some Western poisoning things would guard the cellar's door, ready to restock at any time. The other party's sudden cardiac arrest for no apparent reason is likely due to long-term use of stimulants that led to cardiomyopathy. The short man Melendez interrupted. Yes. Adam glanced at him and nodded, then looked at the most understanding nurse. How are the patient's husband and child? Her husband is fine, just very panicked, the most understanding nurse said, but their 1-year-old son was not injured, but kept crying. No matter how he was coaxed, he couldn't be comforted, which made the child's father very upset. Poor child, it seems that the explosion frightened him too much. He shouldn't have to endure such injuries at such a young age. Keep crying? Adam frowned. We have been doing surgery for an hour. They came here right after, right? Who is in charge of him? Yes, one after the other. The most understanding nurse nodded. Dr. Gray is in charge. Damn it, Adam said seriously. Tell Dr. Gray to do a toxicology test on the baby boy, and then take the baby boy for an X-ray to see if the baby boy is addicted to amphetamines. Yes, the most understanding nurse hurried to make a phone call. Adam, do you suspect that he is addicted to methamphetamine? Dr. Shep was shocked. This is their son, and he is only 1 year old? It should not be fed by them. Adam shook his head. They should be simple calf cooks who do not touch calf products themselves. Otherwise the patient's heart and kidneys would not be so good. Such self-controlled calf cooks would naturally not let their son touch such harmful things, but they made calves in their own apartment. In order to prevent being discovered by outsiders, the isolation and ventilation systems must be incomplete. When the methamphetamine is heated, the volatile substances will spread throughout the apartment. The walls, floors, and sofas are almost full of invisible methamphetamine particles. The baby walks around, crawls on the ground, and puts his hands in his mouth, which is naturally equivalent to taking methamphetamine, and will soon become addicted. And because there is a lot of methamphetamine in the apartment, the male baby gets addicted. He can eat it by crawling and licking, and then he is addicted, which is not much different from ordinary male babies. In addition, when doing such illegal and criminal things, all their energy must be tied up in how to improve the purity, how to prevent being discovered, and how to sell. So even if they were close at hand, the couple could not realize that their precious son had become the Western poison Yuang Feng, who they depended on for a living but despised. Now that the baby boy has left the apartment, it has been so long, and the silver plating has come up, and there is no relief, so he keeps crying. Everyone suddenly realized, what a sin. Addiction to amphetamines can cause a series of irreversible injuries to the nerves, heart, and kidneys. Just like the addict who suddenly suffered cardiac arrest, the disease may relapse at any time. If he was not in the hospital and rescued in time, he might have died. This is still an adult. Now it is a 1-year-old baby boy, whose body has not yet fully developed, and he has suffered such a great trauma. God knows what his future will be like. Perhaps this is also retribution for this pair of calf-making parents. They have made many other people's children become like that, and their families have been broken up one by one. Now it is their turn to understand the feelings of those children's parents. Of course, the premise is that they really love their son, otherwise, they can only feel pity for the child. Chapter 740 I can't bear this kind of love. Medical Center. Operating Room 2. Ding-a-ling. The phone in the operating room rang. The most understanding nurse went over to answer it, talked for a while, and hung up. How is it? Adam asked while performing the operation. After Dr. Gray got the news, she prepared to take the baby boy for examination. The most understanding nurse introduced the latest progress. Then the child's father asked what the situation was. Dr. Gray couldn't help but question the child's father. What did she do? Dr. Shep paused and looked over worriedly. Remember, Adam looked at the little man and Lexi. Never face dangerous people alone without the accompaniment of the police or security guards. Even if you find out something secret, you must hold back and don't reveal anything unusual. Call the police secretly. This is a matter of your life. Remember? Remember. The little man and Lexi agreed quickly. Dr. Gray, it's okay. The most understanding nurse hurriedly comforted her. After being questioned by Dr. Gray, the child's father couldn't believe it at first, and frankly admitted that they did fake the calf. He loved his son very much, but he was too poor at the time and had no job. He said that he was a good father and never touched these things, let alone let his beloved son touch them. Then Dr. Gray told him your speculation, Dr. Duncan. He was stunned, his face full of pain, and then tried to snatch the child from Dr. Gray and run away, but was subdued by the security guard who had been on guard nearby. Now the police have arrived and taken him away. Haha. Adam couldn't help but sneer. Dr. Duncan, do you think he is lying? Lexi couldn't help asking. He may think he is telling the truth. Adam sneered. But does he really love his son? I don't think so. He said he was very poor and had no job, so he took this road of no return? Don't be ridiculous. They are all in their prime, and their children were not born at that time. As long as they are willing to work, they can do anything. The reason they do this business is not because it is easy and makes money quickly. When the child is born, they should have a lot of savings. At this time, the most important thing to do is to quit, find a new job, support the family honestly, and give their baby son a normal and happy family. Otherwise, what do they expect their son who grows up in this environment to go in the future? Moreover, they even let the Western poisoning thing come to their house and expose the child directly to these people. What if these Western poisoning things have no money but want it, and have evil intentions? It is hard to say whether their baby son can live to be rebellious and become the person they hate the most. Not to mention doing such a very dangerous chemical experiment directly in their own apartment, exposing the child directly to such a dangerous environment, and not even realizing that their own child was addicted, leading to the current disaster. As parents, they only say that they love their children, but they don't consider their children at all. Can such love be called true love? Don't tarnish the true love of parents for their children. Yes, he doesn't love his son at all, he only loves himself. Catch him and keep the child away from them. Maybe that's the beginning of hope. Everyone was originally sighing that although they did something wrong as parents, they should still love their son. When the police come, they will arrest the couple and put them in jail. It's miserable to separate flesh and blood. But now, after listening to Adam's analysis, it's thought that the love of real parents for their children cannot be judged by what they say, but by what they do. And this pair of parents didn't even realize that their baby son was suffering such a great irreversible injury. Where did the deep parental love come from? Adam sighed in his heart and couldn't help but think of Walter White, the male protagonist in the American TV series Breaking Bad. Old White, at the beginning, it was really for his family, for his middle-aged pregnant wife, for his unborn daughter and his wife's belly, and for his son who had polio. After finding out that he had cancer and didn't have much time left, he had no choice but to take this road of no return. Otherwise, once he died, what would happen to his wife and children? The family members who had not paid off the mortgage and had no income would be driven out of their house. Then, his wife, who had not worked for a long time in middle age, would have to go back to work to support the whole family with her newborn daughter. It was difficult to live, not to mention his son who had polio and could only use crutches every day, and was about to go to college. If he dropped out of school without money, how could his son support himself without health, education, or skills? So after carefully calculating how much money his son would need to go to college after his death, how much money his wife would need to raise their daughter, and how much money would be needed to pay the mortgage, he decided to risk his life in the last period of his life to make the money, and stop when he made it. Then, such a person completely changed after embarking on this road of no return. He didn't come home every day, and was mysterious. He did make the money very quickly, even countless times more, but his wife and children were unwilling to take the money he made in this way. In order not to become an accomplice, his wife wanted to force him to leave home, away from her and the children, and even cheated directly. It is not ruled out that she probably wanted to cheat, but Lao Bei did give her an excuse. Originally a happy family, it fell apart in an instant. It even killed and harmed many good people, including his brother-in-law's family. But Lao Bei was tough, and finally confessed his heart directly. At first, he was indeed for his family, but later he was for himself. Because he was the best in this industry, he could maximize his life value, which was far beyond the reach of some boring high school chemistry teacher. Even family and family members, in the face of this sense of achievement, had to step back, because in the later stage, even if he had everything he wanted and had too much money to spend, he could stop. But for the sense of achievement in life, he even put himself and his family in danger. So for people who work in this field, don't care who they say they love, but deep down, they only love themselves. For such parents, for a child who has been devastated at the age of 1, staying away from them may really be the beginning of hope. Ding-ling-ling, the phone in the operating room rang again. The most understanding little nurse stepped forward to answer the call, and then immediately said, "Dr. Shept, the child has had a stroke and is now sent to operating room 3. He needs to be operated on immediately." Damn it. When Dr. Shept heard it, he couldn't help but curse out loud. A 1-year-old child had a stroke? It's so fucking stupid. "Dr. Shept, how long will it take you there?" Adam asked. "It will take another hour." Dr. Shept estimated. "I'm fine here, I'll go over," Adam said. "Okay." Dr. Shept still believed in Adam and nodded in agreement. Adam took the little guy and went straight to operating room 3. Chapter 741 Evil Beginning Edition The Big Bang Theory Medical Center 3. Adam led the little guy to perform surgery on the 1-year-old baby boy. Poor child. Adam looked at the little person on the operating table, shook his head, and stretched out his hand. Scalpel. The nurse immediately handed it over. The operation officially began. Originally, this baby had been addicted to amphetamines, causing multiple injuries to the nerves, heart, and kidneys. Now he had surgery again. It was completely a negative buff. Others won at the starting line, but he lost at the starting line, and his parents dug a hole at the starting line and buried him directly in it. The future will definitely be difficult. After the operation on Dr. Shep's side was over, he also brought Lexi and the others over. "How is it?" "Everything went well." Adam looked up and said, "How about you?" "The operation went well." Dr. Shept walked to the operating table to observe. "Little Gray, you go to take care of the child's mother." Adam glanced at Lexi. "Yes, Dr. Duncan." Lexi agreed quickly. Meredith, who was standing aside, looked at the nose and the heart, as if she didn't notice. After the operation, it was already noon. "Cafeteria, George, come here." Meredith saw George standing there with a plate, very conflicted, and waved to him. "No." George looked at Adam, then looked at Lexi, the little guy, and Carter at another table. After a long struggle, he finally chose to go to Lexi's table. "It seems that you really intimidated him," Christina teased. "Poor George." Meredith sighed. "Adam, don't make it difficult for George, he is our friend." "I didn't make it difficult for him. This is his own choice." Adam smiled and said, "Now he is an intern, and it is the best choice to stay with his colleagues and competitors. Haven't you heard a saying? Be close to your friends, and even closer to your opponents." "George is not the most powerful one among the 4 interns. It's good to know your position. Have you forgotten the story of George and Dr. Burke?" Meredith was speechless. The reason why George was killed as an example by Dr. Burke was because the newcomer George had no sense of propriety. On the first day, because he was clumsy and had poor skills, Dr. Burke scolded him. He dared to contradict Dr. Burke, the boss of the boss, in front of the patient, and said in a sarcastic tone, "You must have been like this when you were an intern." Later, as the internship went on, they got along more, and with the relationship with Christina, Dr. Burke became a little closer to him. Then George became arrogant and talked directly to Dr. Burke about the relationship between Dr. Burke and Christina, as if he wanted to share Dr. Burke's worries. Dr. Burke's face fell at that time. Confucius said, "If you are close to someone, they will be disrespectful, and if you are far away from them, they will complain." This sentence is perfect for the beauty George. Adam felt that George could not know what was going on in his heart, and could only passively recognize his position through external performance. Otherwise he would definitely be floating again, neither up nor down. In life or other professions, it may not matter if you are neither up nor down. But it is not possible in the hospital. The strict hierarchy of doctors in the hospital is to treat patients more efficiently. Once there is no hierarchy, chaos will occur, which will cause great harm. "Christina, how is your patient?" Adam asked about the Western poison Uang Feng. "That's it." Christina shrugged and said, "While you were doing the surgery, he suddenly had cardiac arrest twice, and I saved him both times." A man in his 30s, still crying, he said that he was not a drug addict since he was a child. Instead, he went to a party after he turned 30. The smell of amphetamines was everywhere at the party, and it entered his nose. He saw people with infinite joy everywhere. He thought, "What's the big deal? It won't kill anyone to try it once." Then there was a second time. Then his mind was full of it. Then he squatted at the door of the cellar at 5 in the morning, ready to buy at any time. In the end, he had cardiac arrest at any time in the hospital. Then when the addiction came, he trembled all over, scratched his ears and cheeks, cried and said he was stupid, that this was not him, and that he shouldn't be like this. Then when he got excited, the monitor started to alarm again, and his heart stopped beating again. I had to save him again. This is the most powerful environmental infection in the legend. Are you bored? Adam said calmly. Leave it to me. I'll take care of it for you. You? Christina was surprised. Really? I want to hear his story. Adam covered his face. He couldn't say that he was very interested in this kind of case that seemed to extend his lifespan. Right? Okay. Christina thought of Adam's identity as a writer and felt relieved. Then she agreed immediately, fearing that Adam would regret it. It's settled. I'll leave him to you. I won't take care of him. No problem. Adam nodded and smiled. He wanted to try it out to see if it could extend his lifespan. What about that neighbor? Adam thought of that neighbor again. Kelly is in charge, Christina said with a look of pity. Burns and fractures, nothing serious. He is innocent and a pitiful man. Meredith continued. He is 60 years old and still alone. He thinks his neighbors are his family and often helps them take care of their children. Even when an explosion happened in his neighbor's house and affected him, when he was sent to the hospital, he ignored the pain in his body and only cared about the injuries of his neighbor's family. Who would have thought that he thought his neighbors were family? But his neighbors just treated him as a free babysitter. Christina sneered. Every week on the popular calf-making day, they throw the children to him to take care of. They are so professional and busy with their careers. You can't blame him for this. Adam shook his head and said, don't say an elderly widower, even ordinary people. If the relationship is not good enough and close, who dares to give their children to others to take care of? Since the child's parents did this, anyone would think that this is close to each other and a manifestation of being a family, right? Anyone who knows something about the evil in the world of American TV series knows the necessity of guarding against anyone who should be guarded against for children. This includes neighbors, colleagues, acquaintances, relatives, friends, and even family members. In The Big Bang Theory, the first day Penny saw Leonard and his friends, she dared to take a shower at Leonard and Sheldon's apartment, and asked Leonard to deliver a towel. The next day, she even gave Leonard the spare key of her apartment. It can only show that Penny is a super old driver, fearless of any familiar scene that she likes to see. Otherwise, whether it is taking a shower and delivering a towel, or Sheldon using the spare key to open Penny's door late at night, and tidying up her apartment while she was snoring and sleeping, and then Leonard came to join, it would not be a funny comedy. It's either an action movie, or a horror movie. The most likely combination is an action horror movie. Of course, it could also be an action comedy. For example, Leonard and Sheldon are indeed evil. However, the fighting power is rubbish, and Penny, who is extremely strong, uses her giant hand that was often complained by Sheldon and echoed by Leonard at that time to perform the innate chi capture. With one hand, he grabbed Sheldon, the worthless one, and Leonard, who had already started to have asthma due to the stimulation, and took a deep breath of asthma spray, with an expectant look on his face. With a strange laugh, he brought them back to the bedroom and threw them on the bed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742, If You Can Laugh. I lose to the medical center. After lunch, in the ward, Adam took over the self-pitying Ouyang Feng from Christina. Carter, you take care of the bed. After checking, Adam handed the task of taking care of the bed to Carter, who looked at him eagerly. If there is a problem again, call me immediately. Yes, Dr. Duncan. Carter immediately held his head high and his eyes were firm. It felt great to be Adam's follower again. Adam smiled at this. This mentality was inexplicably kind to him, who could only sit in the office closest to the door or with his back to the door in his previous life. Although he had to test whether he could increase his lifespan, Adam couldn't always stay with Ouyang Feng. Otherwise, it would definitely cause controversy. Such trivial matters were handed over to interns by other residents, let alone Adam. Walking out of the ward, Adam went to the future Marie Curie to check the room and see how the patient was doing after the operation. As soon as he walked outside the ward, he saw through the window that the female patient had woken up and was looking at Lexi eagerly, asking about the situation with a painful face. Although the operation was successful, but her burns were very serious, and almost her whole body was wrapped up, with only half of her face exposed. "How could I, when you were heating amphetamine? The stove exploded." Lexi looked at her sympathetically. Oh, the female patient only remembered what happened at this time, and then asked with difficulty, "Your husband and son are fine." Lexi naturally understood what she wanted to ask, and hurriedly said, "But your son is addicted to amphetamines due to passive inhalation. He had a stroke before and just had surgery. The operation went smoothly. Your husband was taken away by the police. I think they will come to find you later." The half of the female patient's face that was exposed was suddenly filled with pain. Her eyes were desperate. She wanted to cry but couldn't cry out loud. She could only open her mouth, and her tightly wrapped body began to tremble. "Mrs. Christ, are you okay?" Lexi suddenly became nervous. "Breathe." Adam walked in, came to the patient's bed, looked at her, took a deep breath, and motioned her to follow his movements. "Come on, slow down, breathe." Facing her desperate eyes, he comforted her. "You must feel that everything is over, but this is just a hurdle in life. You can get through it. Think more about your son." Mrs. Christ stared at Adam, breathing with his breathing. It took a while for her to calm down from the state of difficulty breathing. She spoke with difficulty. "My son, his custody will be transferred to his grandmother in the future," Adam explained. After comforting Mrs. Christ, Adam left the ward. Lexi also followed out at Adam's signal. Dealing with patients requires a lot of skills. Adam reminded, "When you tell them bad news, you must be especially careful. You must be objective and polite, without emotion, but not indifferent." Lexi was speechless. How can you be both unemotional and not indifferent at the same time? Politeness corresponds to not being indifferent, and objectivity means being unemotional. Adam explained, "Being polite on the outside and objective in your words is being unemotional and not indifferent. If, as a doctor, you deviate from this attitude first, whether you accompany sadness or are overly indifferent, it will further stimulate the patients or their families who are in a state of grief, causing uncontrollable consequences. This is absolutely not allowed. Understand?" Understood. Lexi smiled bitterly. She is an emotional person. Facing the pain of patients and their families, she has a strong empathy and can't help but feel sad. It's too easy for her to be unemotional, because she can't be indifferent at all. But asking her to be emotionless is a bit against her nature. "I know you don't really understand," Adam nodded and said, "but it doesn't matter. This can be practiced. My responsibility includes teaching you this. Starting tomorrow, the distribution of the diagnosis results in the hospital will be handed over to you. And Melendez, you two will form a team. When you can achieve not being happy because of the patient's joy, not being sad because of the patient's sadness, being polite and objective, and having a reason for your actions, when will it be over?" Lexi worriedly said, "What if you can't do it?" "Can't do it?" Adam looked at her meaningfully. "I believe you can do it. Otherwise, others are busy with surgery every day, and you can only distribute diagnosis results every day. After a long time, even if the patients and their families are happy, you can't be happy anymore." Lexi couldn't help but shudder. Generally, only the distribution of good news diagnosis results will be handed over to a certain intern to distribute them uniformly, and those bad news are usually distributed by the attending physicians or ward doctors in person. Because when good news is distributed, all you get is the joy of everyone, and anyone can do it. Many people cannot accept the bad news. Patients and their families will ask for details of the illness and other possibilities, which interns cannot handle at all. Lexi is a career-oriented person. If she is asked to do this physical work that anyone can do every day, even if she is emotional, she will not be able to laugh at that time. When she is emotional and can't laugh, it is the ideal state of being emotionless but not cold. As for letting the short man Melendez go together, first, it is better to show Lexi what it means to be emotionless and help her get into the state better. Second, it is also to let the short man practice what it means to be not cold. If he doesn't restrain his arrogance, once he meets patients and their families with the same personality, God knows whether the grieving patients and their families will feel that the short man is too cold and ruthless because of the repulsion of the same sex, and thus target the short man. Don't say it's impossible. Dr. House next door has a sharp tongue, and many people have complained about him, and many of them have used fists. This is just an ordinary patient with few resources. Even if he is unhappy with Dr. House, he can only endure it helplessly. If he meets someone powerful in the future and is angered by his venomous tongue and has to fight him, then Dr. House will be miserable. He is full of problems and flaws. He doesn't need to exceed his authority. As long as he strictly follows the procedures, it will be enough to make Dr. House live a life worse than death. It's just Dr. House's luck that he has never met such a person until now. This is one of the reasons why Adam always thinks that Dr. House is the protagonist. The negative case of Dr. House is in New Jersey next door. Therefore, Adam thinks that in order to train his interns, he must first cultivate a good habit from the beginning. Otherwise, with the world's full of malice towards doctors, the probability of doctors who are not the protagonists suffering is too high. It's also because he hasn't watched many medical dramas and has no idea what the original time and space of the 4 doctors under him were like. But he guessed that George and Lexi's fate is mostly not good. The 2 of them must be characters from the American TV series Grey's Anatomy that I had watched a few episodes of in my previous life. Since Meredith is the protagonist, George and Lexi can only be supporting roles. According to the principle that supporting doctors are more likely to suffer, their original fates would probably not be very good. Of course, Lexi also has the last name Gray, so it is not ruled out that she could kill her half-sister and successfully take the position. I have no impression of the short Neil Melendez and John Carter. Ding-ling-ling. The phone rang. "Hi, Rachel." After Adam answered the phone, he just said hello and was shocked by the next message: "I'll be there right away." After hanging up the phone, Adam ran to the emergency room. Chapter 743 Avengers Civil War Medical Center. At the entrance of the emergency room, an ambulance rushed in. 2 taxis followed closely behind. What's going on? Even though Adam was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw the scene on the trolley pushed out after the ambulance opened. Brooke Boyd, female, 32 years old, broken nose, facial injury, scalp peeling. Vital signs are stable. The emergency personnel had a hard time holding back. And Phoebe Buffet, female, 32 years old, dislocated shoulder, thigh injury. Vital signs are stable. She tore my hair off. She broke my shoulder. You broke your shoulder when you pushed me off the stage. The 2 seemed like mortal enemies. They were both injured like this, but they were still shouting at each other, and they were still lying on the trolley, tightly entangled together, maintaining a grappling posture. In the middle was a bloody white wedding dress, which was tightly held by them, and neither of them was willing to let go. "Mike!" Adam shouted at Phoebe's fiancé, Ant-Man Mike, who had just gotten off the ambulance. "What's going on?" "Ah!" Mike spread his hands, looking helpless, not knowing where to start. "Adam, so she's your friend." Brooke's family member who was accompanying him in the ambulance also got off at this time. Seeing Adam, he immediately shouted, "You don't care about her. You're too cruel. You're just like a street thug." "Carrie, is this your friend?" Adam greeted the other party and tried to smooth things over. "Let's not talk about this for now. Separate them first. I want to treat them. You should also persuade your friend." Carrie Bradshaw is a columnist for a New York metropolitan newspaper. Her column is called Sex and the City. She likes to read about the relationship between men and women from a female perspective. As expected of a female writer, she saw through Phoebe's nature at a glance. Look at Brooke's injuries: broken nose, hit on the face, facial injuries, scratched face, scalp peeling, pulling hair, all of which are the specialty of Street Big Sister Phoebe. TSK. Even the scalp was pulled off. Street Big Sister Phoebe is really too cruel. As for Adam knowing Kelly, it is also normal. They are all celebrities in the New York literary publishing industry, so it is easy to meet on various occasions. It would be abnormal if he didn't know her. At first, she wanted to eat young grass, but she was decisively rejected by the newcomer Adam. First, although she is also known as a beautiful writer, her appearance is really not good in Adam's eyes. Second, she has a bad habit. Just like a famous female singer in the future, she especially likes to write about her own or her love affairs with delicate writing. And looking at the name of her column, You can know that she doesn't know how to avoid private conversations and private affairs with a series of boyfriends. This is her magic weapon for success. It is based on real life, which is exciting enough and naturally eye-catching enough. Her readers include not only urban women, but also many LSs. Barney Stinson is one of them. His diary of picking up girls is also modeled after Kelly's column on sex, but the perspective has changed. He does not hide his nature as a playboy LS, which has attracted many readers from Kelly's readership, both men and women, because they represent different groups of people. They can even be said to be completely opposite. For this reason, the two often quarrel with each other in their respective columns. Kelly is a professional, Barney is an amateur, but Adam knows that the two of them have fought with each other in private a long time ago, and the quarrels later became more of a gimmick to attract attention. Don't let go. Unless she lets go first, I will never let go. Upon hearing Adam's words of exhortation, the two people in a stalemate shouted. At this time, two taxis also stopped, and two teams of people came down from them. Adam was surprised to find that they were all acquaintances. One team was naturally Rachel, Ross, and Joey. Monica's belly was 8 months old. After Adam's repeated instructions, no one dared to ask her about this matter. Chandler was naturally by her side. Therefore, none of them were called by Phoebe. The other team was Carrie's three sisters Samantha, Miranda, and Charlotte. The four of them were a circle of friends, similar to the 6 old friends. Of course, the relationship between the four of them was far less warm than the 6 old friends, but it was less bloody than the 4 girls of a certain era who were imitated by the future. Carrie was a newspaper columnist, not an assistant editor-in-chief of a magazine who liked words. Miranda was a senior lawyer and a top student at Harvard Law School. Unfortunately, her personality was not strong enough and she was not the think tank of the girls. Samantha was a well-known female public relations in Manhattan. She was outgoing and strong, and she was well-informed. She had always been the think tank of the girls. Unfortunately, she was neither an accountant nor a finance major, and she was not a top student in a major. Charlotte was a gallery manager. She only knew how to appreciate art and did not personally win many art awards. It's all your fault. It's your fault. Bitch, don't be so arrogant. Do you still want to fight? Fight me if you want. My friends are not vegetarians. Who's afraid of who? Come on. Seeing that all of their friends had come, Phoebe and that Brooke became more excited, shouting loudly, as if they were going to have a group fight. Rachel, Ross, Joey, and Mike all stood beside Phoebe, and Kelly, Samantha, Miranda, and Charlotte all stood beside Brooke. The two sides confronted each other aggressively. Adam, standing in the middle, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What is this? You know, Phoebe's side is standing with a young Ant-Man, and Brooke's side is full of women. Avengers versus Avengers? A civil war between the Avengers? What's going on? Adam opened his hands to prevent the two sides from getting closer, and looked at a man with a sign hanging around his neck who got out of the car and walked over. It's a store competition. I'm the referee. The man looked helpless. The person who holds the wedding dress until the end wins. The winner gets the wedding of their dreams. My wedding. Phoebe and Brooke shouted loudly, holding back the pain. Dream wedding? Adam asked. This covers the cost of the wedding, right? What's the limit? $100,000. The referee glanced at the gossiping people and blurted out a number. Hiss. The medical staff who were watching the gossip took a breath. Now they understood why the fight was so fierce. Which store are you from? Adam complained. It's not called Stinson's Bridal Shop, is it? He seriously suspected that it was Barney Stinson's idea. Only someone like Barney who is rich, idle and likes to play would set such a high prize money just to watch two brides-to-be fight. Why don't you split the prize money equally? $50,000 each? Adam also knew that it couldn't be called Stinson's Bridal Shop. Otherwise Barney would definitely be watching on the spot. Impossible. This is not about money anymore, Phoebe and Brooke shouted. I have already proposed this 14 hours ago, the referee said faintly. 14 hours ago? A nurse couldn't help but ask. How long have they been like this? 2 whole days. Do you know what it feels like to stand in the cupboard for 2 whole days? How much perseverance does it take? This is the coolest thing I have ever done since I was a child. I will never give up. Oh, miss, You don't know what determination and perseverance are. Phoebe and Brooke started arguing again. Everyone. P.S. Thanks to the sea after the rain for the reward. Chapter 744. The Brawling Man. The Vicious Hand. Medical Center. At the entrance of the emergency room. Avengers vs. Avengers. But the Avengers are obviously stronger, not to mention the bride-to-be Brooke, Carrie, who is always talking in Sex and the City, and Miranda, a senior lawyer, and the key is that there is also a senior female public relations Samantha, whose trash talk output is completely off the charts. As for the Avengers, except for the bride-to-be Rachel who is assisting and Joey who is laughing and making a fuss, the output is all up to the bride-to-be Phoebe. Ant-Man Mike stood beside Phoebe with a helpless look. Ross stood at the back, looking like a weak chicken who wanted to run away at any time even to make up the number, but everyone was used to it. After all, this kind of scene and this kind of Phoebe were simply Ross's nightmare. Enough, Adam shouted. You don't care about money, right? Don't care, too, Phoebe and Brooke shouted in unison. Okay then. Adam looked at Brooke. I know Phoebe, she really doesn't care about money, and she doesn't care about using money to build a gorgeous wedding, because her wedding expenses are directly donated to the New York Children's Charity Fund. She only plans to go to the New York City Hall to register. What about you? Mike heard this and lowered his head directly, not daring to look at anyone. His face was burning, because he was the one who accompanied Phoebe at that time. That scene. I don't care about this little money either, Brooke sneered. My fiancé is very rich. That's right, the female public relations Samantha echoed. This little money can only hire an ordinary band at most, and it can't hire a better one. Okay then. Adam smiled and said, since you don't care about money, why don't you donate the money directly to the Children's Charity Fund? You have no objection, right? I have no objection. I don't care. Phoebe and Brooke looked at each other and shouted. It is impossible to say that she doesn't care at all. It is true that Phoebe donated all the wedding expenses to the New York Children's Charity, but later she tried on the veil and felt so beautiful, so she ran back to get it back, because she still wanted to have a grand wedding. After she went back, she regretted it again and ran back to donate. After she went in, she regretted it again, although she was later squeezed by the staff of the New York Children's Charity. She was ready to donate the money, and then it was stuck there. She handed the money to the staff for a while, and then took it back without waiting for the staff to take over. It kept going back and forth there, like a stuck disc, which made the staff annoyed, and directly rejected Phoebe's donation on behalf of the New York Children's Charity. The money for their wedding was all raised by Phoebe and Mike. Although Mike is a rich second generation, he doesn't want to rely on his parents, and his job as a piano player is also an unstable freelance job, so naturally he can't have much savings. Therefore, this money can't be too much, and it is estimated that it is not even $50,000. In comparison, $100,000 is indeed very touching. This is Phoebe. If it were Monica at the time, she would persist until the end of time in order to upgrade her wedding to a higher level with $100,000. In the original time and space, Monica and Chandler got married. After Monica's parents spent the money they had saved for her, they had to rely on Chandler's savings over the years. Chandler had a good habit of saving money, and his savings really made Monica overjoyed, and she was ready to spend it all. Chandler didn't agree at first. It was too unacceptable to spend all his savings for a wedding. Wouldn't he live a miserable life in the future? But under Monica's insistence, Chandler had to compromise. It was a complete compromise. At the beginning, he made a list and prepared to save as much money as possible, but then Monica tore up the list he had carefully calculated and told him to die. In this time and space, because of Adam's butterfly effect and Adam's money ability, Monica didn't worry about this problem anymore. But Phoebe is now facing this problem. How could Phoebe not care about the $100,000? But at this point, she couldn't say that she cared about money, right? And the same goes for Brooke. Even if she doesn't need the $100,000, with the extra $100,000, her wedding can be more grand. Isn't that great? But I've already said it's not about the money. I can't change my mind in public. The bride-to-be's face is more important than $100,000. Okay, Now that the bonus issue has been resolved, can you let go now? Adam reminded. Without the bonus, there's no point in you holding on to the wedding dress. If you still want to insist, it's just a personal grudge. Personal grudges can be resolved at any time. After your injuries are healed, make an appointment for a one-on-one duel, or after you get married, bring your husbands, and it doesn't matter if you start a couples group. Otherwise, you all have injuries now. If you delay for a long time, whether it's a fracture or a facial injury, it won't be completely recovered in a short time. Are you sure you want to go to the wedding with this face? Phoebe and Brooke looked at each other and hesitated. Seeing this, Adam winked at Kelly and Rachel, asking them to persuade them from the side. I can let go, but only my name can be written on the charity donation list. Brooke shouted unwillingly, I won this game in the end, otherwise, I stood in the cupboard for 2 days. Wouldn't I be a fool? Don't even think about it, only my name can be written. Seeing this, Phoebe also got excited. I am the final winner. Adam's mouth twitched. Well, after persuading for a long time, it was in vain. He finally saw that both of them still wanted the $100,000. Whoever donated in the name of the donation can go and get it back when the time comes. When the quarrel was getting out of hand, Adam's eyes suddenly shrank, and then he walked to Phoebe's side, checked Phoebe's dislocated shoulder, and then unexpectedly straightened her bones. Ah! Phoebe screamed directly, and the hand holding the wedding dress also subconsciously loosened. She let go. She let go. I won. Brooke shouted in joy. No. Phoebe also noticed this, screaming even louder, staring at Adam in disbelief. Okay, you win. Adam stepped forward to examine Brooke, and said with a serious face, now you need to have surgery immediately. What? Brooke was stunned. You have signs of internal bleeding. You must be examined immediately. If the intracranial hemorrhage is serious, you must have surgery immediately. Adam glared at Phoebe, who was staring at him, and then looked at Kelly, the chief resident who had always been invisible. Dr. Torres, Phoebe is in your hands. Kelly is an orthopedic surgeon, and she is in charge of Phoebe's shoulder dislocation, which was corrected by Adam. After saying that, he ignored Phoebe and pushed the trolley to send Brooke to the hospital. Phoebe, the street sister, has a really vicious hand. Brooke's appearance was already bad enough after being beaten by her, and she didn't expect that there would be internal injuries. If it weren't for Adam's keen observation, and it was delayed for a while, Brooke might have died of internal bleeding. Phoebe wouldn't have to worry about her stepfather who stabbed someone in prison when she was about to get married, so that he couldn't be released on bail to attend the wedding. Because she herself was going to jail, Phoebe and Brooke were stunned by the news. They never thought that they would be hurt so badly. They were all very scared. Ross, who was standing farthest away, trembled all over when he heard this, as if he had returned to his childhood. Outside the St. Mark's comic book store, little Ross was busy looking at what trouble the coolly dressed Wonder Woman had gotten into, and wanted to help her as much as possible when he returned. Then a big man suddenly jumped out from nowhere, holding a pipe, pulling his ear and shouting, "Give me the money, idiot!" Even though Phoebe had confessed to him before that she was the big man back then, it was not until now that the two figures were completely merged in Ross's perspective. It's her. It's her. So scary. Chapter 745. I think you are sick. Medical Center. Ward. After the court scan, it was found that Brooke had indeed suffered intracranial hemorrhage under the torture of the vicious Kuang. Fortunately, the amount of bleeding was not large, and a craniotomy was not needed for the time being. Some hemostatic drugs were used, combined with general physical auxiliary means, and close observation was carried out. The follow-up will depend on the effect. If the bleeding can be stopped successfully, everything will be fine. If it doesn't work, surgical operation will be considered at that time. I won. I won. Brooke's fear receded at this time, and infinite joy resurfaced in his heart. Congratulations, you won. Adam congratulated, and then signaled the referee, who had been waiting, to come forward with his eyes. Here is your prize. The referee hurriedly handed Brooke the check for $100,000 that he had prepared but had not been able to give. He was also dragged out by this competition. He regretted taking this job. You know, the two brides-to-be stood for 2 whole days, and he, the referee, Also accompanied them for 2 whole days. I thought standing in the cupboard for 2 whole days, and then having a bloody scalp and hair flying around after a fight, and blood splattering on the wedding dress, was already exaggerated enough. Who would have thought that one of them was actually almost in danger of life? This, a crazy bride-to-be, is really scary. I will donate it when I am discharged from the hospital. Brooke admired the check, and then explained to Adam, who was treating the wound on her face. Originally, this kind of trivial matter could be left to Lexi and the others, but Brooke was getting married soon, and her face was scratched by Phoebe. So Adam decided to do it himself and treat Brooke's facial injuries as best as possible to prevent the possibility of conflicts later. I thank you on behalf of the children assisted by the charity. Adam smiled sincerely, whether he believed it or not. He acted as if he believed it, whether Brooke donated it or not. He had no objection. After all, this was earned by her blood and life. I will definitely donate it. Brooke looked at Adam's face and couldn't help but emphasize it again. Well, I believe you. Adam stopped the work in his hands, looked into her eyes, and said sincerely. Brooke smiled with satisfaction. Can you check me later, doctor? The 4 urban sisters whispered to each other for a while, and the most open public relations manager Samantha came over with her head held high and smiled charmingly at Adam. As soon as she spoke, she was an old driver. Kelly and the others were watching the joke. Adam knew the reason. Because his hearing was far better than that of ordinary people. Even if they deliberately lowered their voices, they still couldn't escape Adam's ears. Kelly and the other 3 had just advised Samantha not to embarrass herself, because Adam Duncan was the most difficult diamond bachelor to catch in New York. No one else. Countless socialites tried their best, but none of them succeeded. If Adam didn't have a female companion, and a very high-quality female companion, to let people know that Adam just didn't like socialites, many people would probably make jokes. They didn't think highly of Samantha, who looked like a cannibal, and teased that only Charlotte among them might have a chance to try, because Charlotte was the most conservative among the 4 girls. But Samantha is always so confident and outspoken. Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? Adam smiled professionally. Here Samantha pointed at her chest and made a scene. Do you like sweets? Adam asked while treating Brooke's wound. Of course, who doesn't like sweets? Samantha bit her lip and said. Do you drink often? Adam asked again. Of course, Samantha teased. I love the feeling of being intoxicated the most. Yeah. Adam nodded and told the expressionless little man standing beside him, Melendez, take this lady over for an examination, and focus on checking if there is any lump. Okay, Dr. Duncan. The little man agreed and looked at Samantha. Madam, please follow me. Him? Samantha said dissatisfiedly. I don't want an intern to see me. I want you, a professional. Sorry. Adam smiled and said, I have to help treat your friend's wound first, and this is a teaching hospital. Medical treatment here requires interns. This way they can learn something and become a qualified doctor in the future to treat more patients. By the way, I was also an intern a few days ago. Forget it. Samantha waved her hand in boredom. She just wanted Adam to help her check. The little man looked cool, but his appearance was not enough to arouse her interest, especially with Adam next to him as a comparison. Madam, I suggest you get checked. Adam smiled and said, as for the reason, Melendez, according to medical statistics, the incidence of breast cancer is increasing year by year. The little man immediately explained, in addition to genetic factors, there are some high-risk factors. Once accumulated, the risk of breast cancer will increase, such as excessive drinking, high-fat diet, overnutrition, obesity, etc. Samantha's face darkened when she heard it. She is a female public relations and has a strong sense of career. Therefore, she eats irregularly when she is busy, eats some high-fat and high-oil junk food to save time, and deal with customers. She is also a top carnivore predator and wine is a sexual medium. Don't drink too much. This is all routine operation. She eats too much high-fat and high-oil junk food. She doesn't do physical work, so it's natural for her to have overnutrition, but saying that she is fat is unbearable. She just has a big frame. Just like Penny, she is the type who can be a muscle bodyguard when she is in a group of otakus. But in the world of American TV series, this is definitely not considered obesity. Madam, Early detection and early treatment are the best. Adam smiled and said, "You said you have chest pain. You'd better get it checked. If you have a disease, treat it. If you don't, prevent it." "Then should we get checked too?" Kelly saw that Samantha looked unhappy, and hurried to smooth things over and teased, "Regular physical examinations are very necessary, especially for women." Adam glanced at Kelly and said meaningfully, "Kelly, have you been arguing with Barney Stinson in your column recently?" "What do you mean?" Kelly was shocked and had an ominous premonition in her heart. "Nothing." Adam shook his head and said, "But I suggest you get a comprehensive physical examination." Of course, he couldn't tell anyone about Barney's condition, but it's okay to remind him. As for whether Kelly would be so unlucky, only God knows. After Adam said this, Samantha and Kelly were no longer in the mood to tease Adam, and followed the little man out with a heavy heart to arrange a physical examination. "Are you trying to scare them so that they won't bother you, right?" After everyone left, Brooke thought he saw through Adam's thoughts. "Of course not." Adam smiled and said, "We are doctors, and we are telling the truth. Regular physical examinations are good for everyone, especially women. For example, breast cancer, a common cancer in women, can be cured as long as it is discovered and treated early, and the cure rate is very high. And whether it is a physical examination or imaging examinations such as ultrasound, X-rays, and MRIs, it is very convenient. Unlike some common cancers in men, it is not easy to check, so that even if many people feel something abnormal, they will not go for a check unless they have to. For example, prostate cancer, a common cancer in men, goes for a physical examination, mainly a rectal digital examination, which directly discourages 90% of men. Of course, there are also simple giant babies like Sheldon who are very happy for others to do such examinations for him. Even if you are not a doctor, as long as you wear clean and sterile gloves, he can do it. Chapter 746, There is no such thing as a peaceful life. Medical Center. Ward. The little guy came back soon. Since they had to do a proper physical examination, it would be better to find a doctor of the same sex. The little guy handed them over to the female doctor and came back. "Melendez, you are in charge of Miss Boyd." Adam had already taken care of Brooke's injuries, and handed the task of taking care of the bed to the little guy. After giving a few instructions, he left. Among the 4 interns, relatively speaking, he now trusts the little guy the most. This case, which is a bit personal, Adam naturally handed it to the little guy. "How is she?" When they arrived at Phoebe's ward, Rachel asked nervously as soon as Adam came over. The others also looked over. "Intracranial hemorrhage, but fortunately it was discovered in time, and the amount of bleeding is not large, so it should be no big problem." Adam glanced at Phoebe who was speaking at him with a bad temper. "It should not involve criminal prosecution. Some people should be thankful. They are too cruel." "It doesn't matter," Big Sister Phoebe said stubbornly. "This is just a little bit." "I didn't take it seriously at all. Otherwise she wouldn't have the energy to entangle with me. I forgot." Adam nodded and said sarcastically, "Even if you go to jail, you will be the number one who grabs beautiful women by the ears and makes them surrender and shout 'We are your bitches.' You really don't care." "That's right." Phoebe proudly pretended not to understand Adam's sarcasm. Rachel touched her ears speechlessly, but she remembered that she and Monica had a quarrel. Phoebe stood in the middle and could not persuade them at all, so she shouted directly, "Sisters are going to fight." Then she grabbed Monica's ear with one hand and Rachel's ear with the other hand, making them scream ouch, ouch, and ended the quarrel. At that time, Phoebe said proudly, "If this happened in prison, you would all be my bitches." Don't ask why Phoebe is so skilled. If you ask, it's because of her miserable childhood. And Phoebe is really reckless. The reason why Ross was robbed by Phoebe when he was a child was because Ross and Phoebe were walking on the street together and were robbed. Ross handed over his wallet quickly and even screamed because Phoebe didn't give him the wallet, for fear that the robber would shoot him in anger. Although it was later discovered that the robber was an old friend of Phoebe. But Phoebe didn't know it at the time. When the robber said he had a gun, Phoebe ignored him. Her calmness scared Ross into thinking that Phoebe was going to attack him, and he kept persuading Phoebe not to. "You know, this is New York. New York with a very high crime rate. They are facing a man who claims to have a gun and dares to rob in public. If Phoebe wasn't really reckless, how could she be such a real big sister who doesn't care about life and death, and will fight if she doesn't accept it? Be more careful next time. Adam reminded helplessly, you are indeed not afraid of going to jail, but you will not be alone in the future. Do you want Mike to stay alone in the empty room and wait for you outside? When Mike was Ant-Man, he saw his wife and daughter with another man after he came out of jail. If Phoebe was in jail after coming out, she also saw that her husband had a new family. Would she be so angry that she would beat Ant-Man Mike to death directly? Phoebe. Mike looked at Phoebe pitifully. He was really shocked by Phoebe's recklessness this time, especially since she almost committed manslaughter and went to jail for it. Okay, Phoebe said submissively, I will pay attention next time. In fact, ever since I became friends with everyone, I have stopped doing it a long time ago. This time, she was really annoying, and I was very restrained. Then in the future, for everyone, for Mike, you should be more restrained. Adam reminded, you are lucky this time. You may not be so lucky next time. If you really want to have a dream wedding ceremony, you can just tell me that you are our good friend. So what's this little favor? No need. Phoebe immediately refused. We just want to rely on our own strength to hold our own wedding. Otherwise Mike's family has plenty of money. Why would they need your money? Yes, Mike echoed. We just want to rely on ourselves. Otherwise we will not lack money at all. Like Phoebe said, my parents will die one day. His parents live in a high-rise apartment on Park Avenue in the Upper East Side, with 3 floors above and below, and servants. Haha. Adam grinned. He knew that Mike had a bit of Chandler's style of joking and self-deprecating, but he still reminded him, it's best not to let your parents hear this, otherwise either you won't be able to wait for that day, or Phoebe won't be able to wait for that day. This kind of parents all have a big trick, that is, if the main account is useless, just start a small account to practice again. They have plenty of money, as long as they are willing. It's easy. So even if Mike is an only child and the first asset heir, but if he really angers his parents and is kicked out of the list of heirs, then it will be miserable. Don't think that he doesn't want to rely on his parents now and makes a living by playing the piano, but that's because he lives in a mansion, enjoys the service of servants, and the major expenses are basically covered by the family, so he can comfortably say that he wants to make a living with his hobbies, the little money from playing the piano. If you have it, it's good. If you don't have it, it doesn't matter. When you can't make it, the worst thing is that you will be forced to go back and inherit the billions of dollars. But once he was kicked off the list of successors, without a solid backing, he really had to make a living by playing the piano. Then playing the piano would definitely not be a pleasant thing at that time. Ha! Ha! Mike laughed awkwardly. Seeing that he was talking, Adam began to help Phoebe do another checkup to see how Kelly handled it. Although Kelly's level was very good, it was not as good as his. Phoebe was his friend, so naturally he had to pay attention. The result satisfied Adam. Kelly's ability to become the chief resident was not entirely due to luck. Is the date set? Adam asked casually. Not yet, Phoebe said. I'm wondering whether to wait until Monica has given birth. Well, if you're not in a hurry, it's better to wait, Adam said immediately after hearing this. This is Monica's first child, and this one is hard one. In 6 weeks, it will be the due date. It's not suitable to participate in such activities at this time. Yeah, Phoebe nodded. I think so too. My wedding can't be without Monica. It's better to move it back, at least 10 weeks later. Adam calculated the time. Maybe Monica can be the general director of your wedding by then. Ah, Phoebe exclaimed after hearing this. I suddenly think it's better to get married right away. Haha. Everyone laughed. Phoebe was like this because everyone knew that Monica had obsessive-compulsive disorder. Once she became the general director of the wedding, then Phoebe's wedding would not be the bride Phoebe, but Monica, the general director. Everything must follow Monica's rules, and the bride is no exception. Your injury also needs time to recuperate. 10 weeks is the minimum. Adam smiled and said, besides, it's not that scary for Monica to be the general director of your wedding. Do you think planning a wedding is really as simple as you think? Without Monica's obsessive-compulsive disorder, if you were to do it, you would be driven crazy. By then, you would probably rather not get married than deal with these complicated wedding affairs. Really? Phoebe didn't believe it. I think Monica and Rachel's wedding preparations are very simple. Everyone was speechless and looked at Adam in unison. There is no such thing as a peaceful life. It's just that someone is carrying the burden for you. Chapter 747. Today is your lucky day. Medical center. In the ward. Under Adam's persuasion, Phoebe finally decided to postpone the wedding at the risk of being dominated by Monica. In this way, her stepfather might be able to be released on bail to attend her wedding, and she wouldn't have to ask Joey to play her father and walk her down the aisle. Ever since she invited Joey, he has been into the role, and he always looks at her fiancé Mike with a stern father-in-law's eyes. This makes Mike very uncomfortable. The premise is that her stepfather doesn't stab people in prison recently, and Adam is willing to help. After chatting with a group of old friends here for a while, Adam left. Now it's working time, and the rookies under him are also in the final sprint of the first shift. He needs to keep an eye on them and find new operations. Because Phoebe will get married later, he will definitely attend. The life extension task on that day must be completed in advance so that he can attend with peace of mind. Adam went to the free clinic first to see George O'Malley. I have to say that Christina's words are rough, but her logic is not rough. Under normal circumstances, the frequency of surgeries in free clinics is too low. George was bored and helped people check various minor problems. For example, someone felt that there was something wrong with his vomit, so he packed it up and brought it to George, insisting that George look at it and smell it to see if there was any problem. Another example is that a patient originally just felt uncomfortable in his stomach, but after seeing George, he suddenly felt that his prostate was uncomfortable and asked George to help him check. The reason why the free clinic is free is that these doctors are all voluntary to help, and the medical equipment in the clinic is very limited. Therefore, expensive medical equipment cannot be used, and it depends more on the personal level of the doctor. Once there is a problem that the doctor who comes to help cannot easily solve, and it is necessary to use medical equipment in the hospital outside the clinic, then there will be a fee. Under the stern gaze of Dr. Bailey, George could only endure the discomfort, put on gloves, and go to the private ward to help him do a rectal digital examination. After coming out, the patient said with a comfortable face that if there are still problems in the future, he will definitely come again, and asked Dr. O'Malley's schedule. George's face at that time, it was extremely hurtful and insulting. Dr. Bailey, who was always strict, could only lower his head and purse his lips, trying to hold back his smile. He changed into a serious professional face and shouted at the patient. Under the majesty of Dr. Bailey, and hearing that he would be forced to undergo a psychiatric examination, he might be sent to a mental hospital or the police station. He looked at George, looked back every few steps, and left reluctantly. Adam watched quietly for a while, then turned and left. Here, Dr. Bailey continued to take care of George, which saved him trouble and worry. It was good. Carter was in charge of the Western poisoning thing, which disappointed Adam greatly, because until now, there was no need for rescue again. Think about it, when Christina was in charge, Wu Feng had just understood the current situation and was excited. Coupled with Christina's venomous tongue, it was normal for his heart to stop beating twice in a short while. Now that stage has passed, and Carter is honest and responsible, fearing that there will be problems, Wu Feng will naturally not have any problems in the short term. Adam can't let Carter stimulate the other party with words to cause illness, right? However, Adam raised his hand to check the time. Wu Feng was addicted, and the next addiction was not far away. If he could not relieve himself by then, the possibility of a relapse would increase greatly. Thinking of this, Adam did not alarm Carter and turned away. Outside Brooks' ward, the four urban sisters stood silently in the corridor. The bored Kelly took out a box of ladies' cigarettes from her bag and put them in her mouth skillfully. "Madam, smoking is prohibited here." A nurse immediately stepped forward to stop her. Kelly wanted to say something, but when she met the stern eyes of the nurse and looked at the big no smoking sign on the wall where the nurse pointed her finger, She still didn't say anything. She could only put the cigarette in her mouth in a depressed mood. "What's wrong?" Adam came over and saw this scene. His heart moved, and his eyes looking at Kelly became a little weird. "Is this a trick?" "It's not me." Kelly met Adam's eyes and immediately understood what Adam meant. She shook her head and looked at the silent Samantha. "Of course it's not you." Adam nodded. "Not to mention that Barney is basically well, and the risk of infecting others is very low." Let's talk about Kelly herself. She is an old driver, so she shouldn't be too self-protective. This is a classic scene. At that time, she was carrying a handbag to the banquet, and was accidentally bumped by the waiter. The handbag was not held firmly and fell directly to the ground, scattering all over the floor. In addition to various lipsticks, the most eye-catching thing is the dozen magic items. That is what the confident Rajesh and Howard carry with them. It is also what Adam's father Bob secretly gave him before graduating from high school and attending the graduation party. It is similar to a dozen magic one-piece playing cards, but unlike Rajesh and others, Kelly knows herself very well, so the dozen magic one-piece playing cards are all written in bright big words, ultra thin. At that scene, NLS immediately teased, "Now I finally understand that success is not accidental. Miss Bradshaw is worthy of being the author of Sex and the City. She has worked so hard to write spiritual words. Art comes from life." "Miss Bradshaw, I have a story here. Are you interested?" Ha ha ha. All kinds of teasing and dirty words are endless. Fortunately, Kelly wrote these things and was proud of them. Although it was awkward at first, after picking up these things, she soon participated in the banquet naturally. This gesture immediately attracted the appreciation of many female guests at the banquet, and they surrounded her and talked about it. Of course, there were also LS who wanted to tell her stories. Kelly talked to them about the benefits of doing so. First, in this city of desire, you must protect yourself and not give those selfish people the opportunity to make excuses. Second, it is also for yourself. If you meet a man you like very much, you can avoid missing him by mistake because you can't find him. Third, you can bring your own, choose what you like, and you can rest assured about the quality to prevent accidents. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Why not do it? Therefore, if Kelly is infected by Barney, who has a low chance of infection now, she will be really unlucky. The test results are not good. Adam looked away from Kelly and fell on Samantha, who was no longer agitated. That Dr. Pierce said that Samantha suspected that she had breast cancer. Kelly said worriedly. Dr. Pierce is a senior resident in the Department of Oncology. Adam asked, "Where is the film? Let me see it." Kelly quickly handed the film to Adam. "Now we have done a physical examination and imaging examination. She said that a biopsy is needed for the final diagnosis." "Yes." Adam picked up the court film and said while looking at it, "If you want to confirm the diagnosis, it is best to do a biopsy." "How is it?" Kelly asked. "It seems that even if it is breast cancer, it is in the early stage and can be treated." Adam comforted, "This is also a good thing. Otherwise once it develops to the middle and late stages without knowing it, it will be troublesome at that time." "Then today is really my lucky day," Samantha said self-deprecatingly. "To some extent, it is true." Adam nodded seriously. Urban Women. P.S. Thanks to Dan High Queen's Licking Dog. Book friend 20190613221210639, Wani and Orange River, and book friend 20170212093748727 for their rewards. Chapter 748 I love you, but I love myself more. Medical Center. Outside the ward, the 4 urban girls were speechless. It was not that they did not understand what Adam said. It was just that when something like this happened to them, even if it was a blessing in disguise, their sense of humor could not be brought into play. After all, it was still unfortunate. This was cancer, or breast cancer. "Adam, if it is confirmed, how should it be treated?" Kelly asked, looking at Samantha cautiously. "Didn't Dr. Pierce tell you?" Adam asked in surprise. "If it is confirmed to be breast cancer, Samantha is still young and in good physical condition to withstand surgery, so surgery is the first choice. If it is confirmed to be in the early stage, breast-conserving surgery can be chosen to remove only the tumor and 1 to 2 centimeters of tissue around the tumor. The benefits of doing so are self-evident. The disadvantage is that it cannot ensure that there will be no recurrence, and regular follow-up examinations are required after surgery. Another option is radical resection. As the name suggests, it is to remove the entire breast, pectoralis major and minor muscles, all axillary lymph nodes, internal thoracic arteries and veins and surrounding lymph nodes, and all tissues that may become cancerous in breast cancer in advance to completely eradicate the possibility of breast cancer. Hiss. Kelly and the other two girls took a breath of cold air. Then, is that still a woman? Charlotte murmured in disbelief. You can have plastic surgery later. Adam murmured. Eradication surgery is effective, but because the range of resection is too large, it has a huge impact on the patient's quality of life after surgery. Therefore, this type of extended eradication surgery is rarely used. Most of them now do modified eradication surgery, which preserves the pectoral muscles and combines it with plastic surgery after surgery. The appearance effect is better and it is more easily accepted by patients. Does eradication surgery mean completely eradicating the cancer and preventing it from recurring? Senior lawyer Miranda asked. Sorry, I have to look at this one more time. Adam shook his head and said, unless it is in the early stage, only 60% to 70% of early breast cancer patients can be completely cured, and the remaining 30% to 40% may still relapse. Therefore, long-term tracking, close follow-up, and regular review are routine activities for cancer patients. Early detection and early treatment are really a very lucky thing. What about chemotherapy? Miranda asked. Do I need chemotherapy? I heard that chemotherapy will cause hair loss. Yeah, Adam nodded. It's okay to lose hair after chemotherapy. If you stop chemotherapy later, it will grow back. But chemotherapy does damage the body's own immunity and make people more susceptible to illness. Generally, chemotherapy is required after cancer surgery. But if breast cancer is discovered early enough, endocrine therapy or targeted therapy with fewer side effects can be used, and chemotherapy is not necessary. In short, it is a very lucky thing to find out that Samantha has breast cancer in advance today. Kelly concluded happily. Yes, as long as it is found early enough, breast cancer will not harm Samantha at all. Miranda and Charlotte also understood what Kelly meant and actively agreed. Thank you. Samantha felt a little better, put away her self-deprecation, and said sincerely, after hearing so much, she found that the biggest hope was the early detection and early treatment that Adam kept emphasizing. The earlier the discovery, the better. But originally, she was like many early patients, she didn't notice it at all, or didn't take it seriously when it was a little strange. Today, if she hadn't teased Adam to check her, and Adam ignored her teasing, but pointed out the risks very professionally and asked her to go for the checkup, God knows if it will be the difference between life and death, or life and death. I'm a doctor. Adam smiled and said, this is my job. I want you to be my doctor. Samantha took a deep breath and said, can I? Of course. Adam smiled and said, if you are ready, I can help you arrange a biopsy now and confirm it as soon as possible. Cancer is generally handled by the oncology department, but surgery can be performed by surgeons. Adam can help Samantha perform the surgery, and then transfer her to an oncologist. The long-term tracking, close follow-up, and regular review will all be handled by this oncologist. The oncologist is also happy to do so, because these are their fixed patient groups, and the luxury houses and sports cars all rely on this stable and expanding patient group. Adam can actually do it himself, because generally patients trust the doctors who perform surgery on them and succeed. Many patients, no matter what disease they have in the later stage, even if the profession is not suitable, still like to find the doctor they trust, and then the doctor they trust decides whether to handle it themselves or hand it over to another doctor. You know, doctors in American dramas transfer patients to each other, but they get a share, because the medical industry in the United States is industrialized. Introducing patients to you is an introduction, and introducing patients to him is also an introduction. Unless the patient's condition is a difficult and complicated disease, you are indispensable, otherwise there is no benefit. Why should I introduce you? And if you say it against your conscience, even if you are indispensable, but as long as I don't say it, How can the patient know? It won't be him who will die anyway, and the cost of treatment will not be reduced at all. If the doctor can't be cured, he will earn more. This is a great test of the doctor's medical ethics. This is why once a patient trusts a doctor, he will hold on to him and go to him for all kinds of diseases. Adam deserves the patient's trust, but Adam doesn't lack that little money. He only lacks time. If there are too many people following up and re-examining, it will take up too much of his time to treat patients and save lives. Therefore, Adam always pays attention to the trends in the medical community and does not let go of gossip. Not only do he understand the medical skills of these colleagues, but he also secretly evaluates their medical ethics and knows what they are like. Otherwise, if he hands the patient over to the so-called famous doctor who looks brilliant on the outside but has corrupt medical ethics on the inside, wouldn't he betray the patient's trust in him? Just do it. Adam took Samantha to do a biopsy. Under the guidance of ultrasound, he punctured the suspected breast cancer mass, took out a small amount of mass tissue, sent it to the laboratory, and did an expedited pathological examination. Breast cancer was confirmed, and it was in a very early stage. Adam specifically consulted with the attending physician of the oncology department, and then with Samantha's consent, arranged for Samantha to be hospitalized and undergo various preoperative examinations first. If there is no problem, she will undergo breast-conserving surgery tomorrow. Yes, Samantha chose breast-conserving surgery. If it is not a last resort, it is estimated that not many women are as decisive as Dr. Montgomery's friend. Just because of heredity, she might get it, so she directly underwent a double mastectomy, a false breast transplant, a hysterectomy, and a bilateral oophorectomy. At the beginning, Dr. Montgomery's friend insisted on doing so despite her husband's repeated persuasion, although her husband left first and then appeared again when she had the operation. It seems that he compromised and chose to support his wife's very impulsive decision. But I don't know how they are now. This is the biggest and cruelest test of whether there is true love between the couple. It is said that love between opposite sexes is just for reproduction. Then Dr. Montgomery's friend and his wife, who have completely lost the possibility of reproduction, should be the best example to prove whether true love exists. But Adam is not optimistic about this, because true love, like human nature, cannot be tested, especially over a longer timeline. Perhaps everyone is like this: I love you, but I love myself more. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749 Women will only affect the speed at which I draw my sword. Medical Center. Time flies. In a blink of an eye, the first round of 36-hour duty for the new batch of interns has come to an end. Okay, you can go off work. Have a good rest, and let me see you in the hospital at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Adam smiled at the 4 interns standing in front of him. George's face was happy. Carter breathed a sigh of relief. Lexi glanced at Adam with her eyes, wanting to say something but stopping. Only the short man raised his hand. What's the matter, Melendez? Adam nodded to the short man. Dr. Duncan, I heard that you have a study class in the evening. Can I join? The short man replied. Tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. There are still 11 hours. I don't need that long to rest. Maybe you don't need that long to rest, but you always have your own personal life, right? Adam glanced at everyone with a playful look. What is that? The short man said coolly. Studying medicine is my career and my life. George's mouth twitched. This is so pretentious. But then he was dumbfounded. Me too. Dr. Duncan, can I join? Carter and Lexi also raised their hands. Is that so? Adam looked thoughtful. Are you sure? Sure. 3. The 3 short men shouted in unison. As Adam's eyes fell on George, the other 3 also looked over. George smiled bitterly. I have an appointment with Kelly. Okay, you go. Adam smiled. Career is important, but girlfriend is also important. Thank you. George was flattered and thanked him. However, in the eyes of the short men, he couldn't move his feet, especially the eyes of the short men. It seemed to say, what's a girlfriend? It will only affect the speed of our scalpel. What's the point of having a girlfriend? You are not suitable to join now. Adam let George stand there awkwardly, and ignored him. He smiled at the three short men and said, "But if you really think that 11 hours of rest time is too long, and you really don't have any other spare time, then come with me." Then he took them to his office. The three short guys followed closely. George stood there, feeling so conflicted. Finally, he gritted his teeth and followed. In this situation, he always felt that it would be a bit bad if he didn't follow everyone. Arrived at the office. These are the videotapes of each issue of our study class, and the catalog list of medical books involved in the videotapes. Adam pointed to 4 piles of videotapes that were obviously prepared in advance, and the densely written book lists on them, and smiled. "Take them home and read them first, just as bedtime reading. Remember to thank Dr. Christina Yang, who copied and sorted them out with great effort." The short guys walked forward with a happy look on their faces, while George almost spit out a mouthful of complaints. "This is a bedtime reading? With this, how can there be time to sleep?" Not only can he not sleep with his girlfriend Kelly, even if he wants to sleep alone, it is probably a luxury. This is simply a death warrant. Yes, he did participate in almost all of them, and he didn't need to watch the videotapes again bit by bit, but the catalog of books for the study class sorted out by Christina was completely his nightmare. Adam and Alice Gray's discussions were all about expanding the scope from one point to another. Often, the theoretical knowledge points involved in a videotape required reading a lot of medical books to understand, compared to Christina, who had always been taking notes seriously, reading books or asking questions. In order to keep up with Adam and Alice Gray's conversation to the greatest extent possible, George and Meredith were more casual. They listened more to what they could understand. They listened less to what they couldn't understand. Otherwise, with their personalities and learning abilities, if they didn't choose to lie down and be more Buddhist, they would have been unwilling to participate in this depressing study class. Now it was too difficult for him to follow Christina's footsteps and try to digest these profound and complex medical knowledge. What? Can he continue to lie down and be Buddhist? If he hadn't seen Adam's neat 4th base videotape, he would have really believed that Adam's words just now to persuade him to put his girlfriend first were not a mockery. At this time, something happened that made George even more depressed. The little guy happily touched the videotapes, read the list, and raised his hand again. "What's the matter, Melendez?" Adam smiled. "Dr. Duncan, can we join your class after we finish watching these videotapes?" The little guy still stared at Adam's class. "Not after finishing them." Adam smiled and said, "If you really want to join, I can test you to see how well you have mastered it. As I said, free choice, no force. I will definitely join." The little guy's eyes were firm, and at the fastest speed. "Me too," Carter shouted unconvinced. "Me too." Lexi touched the videotapes, looked at Adam, and echoed, "I." George really didn't know what to say. He was originally in the class, and he was lying in it very comfortably. Now that the little guy did this, he felt that he was no longer qualified to lie in it comfortably. "Damn it, this damn little guy, do you have to be so passionate?" "No one is as passionate as you." He looked at Adam suspiciously, then at the little guy, and guessed in his heart, "Is this a double act between the two of you?" Adam saw what George meant and gave him a look that said, "You think too much." After looking at each other, he looked away and kindly hid the last sentence, "Do you deserve it?" Adam did prepare these things in advance, but as long as the little guy and his friends didn't take the initiative to ask for them, Adam would never mention a word, because learning this thing ultimately depends on the individual. And the biggest influence is always the individual. Yes, Adam does intend to train them to become famous doctors, which can greatly prove Adam's teaching ability and lay a more solid foundation for his future network of contacts. But these are icing on the cake, dispensable things. Even if Adam doesn't take George and his friends with him, will it affect his status? Don't joke. Alice Gray has such a cold personality. She calls people idiots and asks them to get out if they don't agree with her. Even her own daughter is no exception. In the end, she still became a legendary doctor. Being a doctor, in the end, is all about practical medical skills. And Adam has everything. "Okay, you guys go back." Adam smiled and said, Don't feel stressed, these are all amateurs. Do your best, and it doesn't matter if you can't do it. Books and other things are all in the hospital library. Enjoy your time after your first shift. See you tomorrow. After they left, Adam packed up and prepared to leave. He has an appointment tonight. P.S. Thanks to Habsfan for the tip. Chapter 750. The goddess of mathematics enters the night. Adam, who had suspended Alice Gray's special meal tonight, went to see Phoebe first. After leaving the medical center, he went to Monica's apartment to visit Monica. After checking, he chatted with the Chandler couple for a while, and then said goodbye. He has an appointment tonight. Outside Duncan's apartment, a beautiful woman stood at the door, straightened her slim clothes, glanced at the camera in the corner, took a deep breath, and rang the doorbell. Sandra, you can do it. Don't forget the key purpose this time. Definitely. Sandra, a reporter from the Daily Bugle, kept cheering herself up in her heart while waiting for the door to open. A week ago, after discovering that she was not up to her expectations, Sandra was very discouraged for a while, and then she cheered up again, because she found that Adam wanted to confuse her, but she didn't know that this just brought her back to the court. Being too smart is outsmarted. She turned from dark to light, but she turned from light to dark without making a sound. It was so exciting. She could already imagine the praises that people would give her when she wrote an article to expose Adam's true face: wisdom, courage, beauty. All the beautiful adjectives would be added to her, and all of this would be within her reach with Adam's brilliance. She should have come here 6 days ago to make further efforts, but unfortunately, the conditions did not allow it. She rested well at home for a few days, carefully planned all the next plans, and felt that she had the advantage, so she excitedly made an appointment with Adam. But what made her angry was that Adam actually declined her, saying that he was very busy these days and had to stay in the hospital. If she was willing, she could make an appointment next Monday or next Tuesday. Then it was delayed until tonight, just when Sandra was thinking about a lot of things. The door opened. Sandra immediately retracted her thoughts, took a deep breath, and switched the expression of Doctor Strange's Adam Duncan. I'm here to negotiate, to the classic charming expression of the multidimensional isotope Black Widow. The next day, early in the morning, before dawn, Adam got up and went to work happily. Afternoon, Sandra finally woke up from the darkness. Damn it. Sandra cursed herself for not being able to live up to her expectations. She lay down for a long time before she struggled to get up and began to explore Adam's apartment. Last time, although she also stayed here afterwards, the one named Juno and Karen were also there, so she didn't have a chance to find clues. Originally, she planned to wait until Adam left and get up early to search. In this way, she would have a long time before Adam came back again, but unfortunately, she miscalculated. In the study, so many books. Sandra saw the rows of books in Adam's big study, which were densely packed and full of books, and she couldn't help but exclaimed. She didn't think that Adam's books were just decorations for rich people, because the image of Adam reading books really left a deep impression on her. He really reads books all the time. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but touch her back. The coolness and heaviness of the big books seemed to be clearly felt now. With a start, Sandra couldn't help but walk to the floor-length mirror, leaned sideways, lifted up her white men's shirt, stared at her back in the mirror, and read a line of words that were faintly visible: the scattering theory of automorphic functions. Damn it. Is this a tattoo? Sandra didn't know what to say. She felt that just by writing about the strange anecdote, she would be famous for a while, and maybe she would be given a title like the goddess of mathematics, but she still suppressed this impulse. This kind of strange anecdote is just a side story. The fall of an angel into a demon is the real event that can make a sensation in the world. Thinking of this, Sandra stretched out her hand, ready to rub off the scattering theory of automorphic functions faintly printed on her back, but after stretching her hand over, she paused. It looks quite interesting. Sandra leaned sideways again, looked at it from various angles, and suddenly felt that it was quite beautiful and cool, and wondered whether to use this to get a tattoo directly. After a long while of being conceited, she let the imprint of the book title remain on her back, left the floor-length mirror, and began to explore the study. After searching for a long time, she still didn't find any secrets. After a moment of frustration, Sandra suddenly laughed. Not finding any flaws is the biggest flaw. Which rich person doesn't have a safe at home? If not, there must be a secret room hidden. Sandra cheered up, looked at the rows of densely packed books, and her eyes lit up. Yes, it must be in these books. Then, she began to flip through the books, trying to find the kind of disguised books that reveal a secret room when you pick up the books in the movies. But she patiently flipped through the books one by one, flipped through them for several hours, and flipped until it was completely dark. But she still didn't find it. There was no way. There were too many books in Adam's study. Even if she flipped through one book per second, it would only be 3,600 books per hour. There were tens of thousands of books in such a large study. Calculating that Adam would be back soon, Sandra quickly cleaned up the study, took a shower, changed back into her own clothes, and left with difficulty. She needed time to rest, reflect, and figure out where Adam's secret was hidden. If she stayed, she would not have the energy to rest and think. I will definitely come back again. Walking downstairs of the apartment building, Sandra turned around and looked for a while, her eyes firm again. Although Adam didn't know what Sandra did now, he would know everything when he came back in the evening. That's right, Adam installed a secret camera in the apartment to record everything Sandra did when she entered the door. Sandra had problems, so how could Adam not be on guard? Compared to Sheldon, before Amy asked for his gift, he asked Amy to agree verbally, and even printed a standard contract for Amy to sign before taking the gift, and complained that even he had to be on guard against being set up by a honey trap these days. Adam naturally went a step further. Everything was recorded in video. His words and deeds were all standard, reasonable, polite and well-mannered, the kind that will never lose a lawsuit. And after Adam left, if there was no video surveillance, he would not feel comfortable leaving Sandra alone in his apartment. What if she left something in his apartment or left some surveillance equipment? It would be too embarrassing. Therefore, a week ago, Adam's refusal was definitely not only because he couldn't arrange it on his schedule, but also because it took time to install surveillance. With these secret cameras, Adam can not only monitor Sandra's behavior, but also use these videos to analyze and study her behavior and psychology with Juno, and make mental preparations to disintegrate Sandra's hostility. This can also be regarded as a kind of behavioral psychology practice class. It's like Adam studying mathematics with Peggy. This time, Adam's professor for further study in behavioral psychology is Juno. Alas, during the day, he has to study medicine, cure diseases and save lives, and teach 4 interns. At night, he has to work hard to transform the enemy's mind. During the transformation process, he has to seize every opportunity to complete the homework of the mathematics professor and study various mathematical classics in the reading list. Afterwards, he has to study and analyze the enemy's behavioral psychology with the psychology professor and formulate a study and practice plan for the next period. Adam is really too difficult. In the previous life, everyone said that we should reduce the burden, and people like Adam are the ones who really need to reduce the burden. P.S. Thank you for the reward from the dog of Queen Tan Hai. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.